27-year-old tutor, Nafisa Habib, is suing her ex-boyfriend's friend, 28-year-old bakery worker Anise Fields, for smashing her windshield with a baseball bat.
Ms. Habib, both you and the defendant have a child.
Yes.
And that child was fathered by the same person.
Yes.
So that's how you know each other.
Yes, ma'am.
And I would assume that you don't like each other.
I have no problem with that.
Well, then you think she doesn't like you.
I guess, yes.
Because it's your claim that she smashed the windshield of your car.
Yes, ma'am.
When did this take place?
On January 12, 2001.
Where?
His uncle's house where he was staying there at the time.
This is the father?
Yes.
Of both children?
Yes, ma'am.
You have any other children?
Yes, I do.
How many?
4.
4 other ones?
4 children altogether.
Altogether. How old is your child?
My child is 3.
And yours?
He's 3. My child's 1 month older than her son.
Tell me how it happened that you happened to be in the same location.
January 12th, he called me and asked me to bring over my daughter. He doesn't see her a lot, so I brought her over.
To where he was staying?
Yes. While we were there, I was downstairs in like the lounge area in the basement, and he was upstairs. And I heard some banging on the door. I thought he had locked himself outside the house. So I called upstairs, Rude Boy, did you lock yourself outside?
What's his name?
Rude Boy. By that time, he came downstairs. He said, Anise is outside.
Anise,
Yes.
that's you.
Me. Yeah. I said, are you gonna let her in? He said, no, she's upset. She's gonna wanna fight. I said, fight who? That's when she busted the basement window. She had a bat in her hand, and I saw her. Rude Boy ran upstairs. I stayed downstairs. They were outside. I heard her yelling, what do you think, I'm stupid? Is she in there? Is she in there? I heard him yelling. He said, I'm gonna call the police. He came in the house. Apparently she left. He came downstairs. He didn't call the police. We started cleaning up the glass. At that time, I said, Rude Boy, let me drop you off at work. When I went to my car, opened my door, I saw the glass on my seat and saw she bust my windshield. I switched cars with my father and I went to her house. She invited me in. We talked for a while. The end result of the conversation was that Anise said she was going to pay for my windshield when she got her school money because she didn't have any money at the time. The very next day, after Anise busted my windshield, she called me and she apologized continuously. Nafisa, I'm sorry, this is not me. I don't go around busting girls' windshields. I felt sorry for Anise because I know how it is for a brother to allow you to believe that it's all about you and it's not all about you. So I felt sorry for her. I said, no problem, Anise, when you get the money.
So, bottom line is, you saw her with a bat break the basement window.
Yes.
But not your car window.
No.
But she did, in fact, tell you that she would pay for it. Okay, let me hear you.
She's lying. Basically.
Why don't you just tell me what happened? You went over
I wasn't there. No, I was not there. No.
Just a second. Are you telling me that you never went to the house?
Yes, that's what I'm telling you.
I think you have to come up with a better story than that. I'm going to tell you why. Because I believe her when she says that you came to the house.
Mm-hmm.
I believe her when she says that she saw you with a bat in your hand and that there was glass downstairs in the basement window. So I think we're going to start over again.
She's lying. He lives there. So he was there. So he can tell you. I was not there.
All right.
She's lying. I don't know. My basement window never got broke. I don't know how you can see somebody break the basement window from the basement. I don't know what she's talking about. Prior to this, she said I broke her window, busted her car up. She told my grandmother I did it. She let a friend of mine use her car. He crashed her car up. She said I did it. I don't know nothing about what this is about.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, Miss Judy, Judge Judy. I'm trying to be calm because I want to cry because I cannot believe that Jamar would sit up here and lie. He was supposed to watch Hanifa, but he said that he couldn't watch her. I didn't even know he was going to be here. Rude Boy, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Shh. Don't talk to him.
I'm sorry.
Can I see the police report, please?
Yes, ma'am. Miss Judge Judy, he also told me, Rude Boy himself told me that Anise had intentions several times to pay you for your car windshield, but things that came up. When I went to her house, I met her mother, I met her daughter, Asia.
You brought your daughter to
I met
my house.
her son.
No. Okay, just a minute. Wait.
Oh, God.
I can't believe you, Rude Boy.
I can't believe you.
Oh, it's over.
Never was anything.
Whatever, Rude Boy. Whatever.
If you talk amongst yourselves, you're leaving.
Excuse me.
Tell me why you reported this to the police 2 days later.
Well, I believed in when she said she was going to pay me for the windshield, and when she called me the very next day after it happened, I believed her. I believed it. My father said, Nafisa, cover your tracks. If you get a police report, then at least you have that in case you have to take her to court. I did not believe it was going to have to go this far. It's only $183. I'm not asking her for cab money or the inconvenience she put me. My sister had to come and get me several times to pick up my children. I work 2 jobs. I raised 4 children by myself. I don't have time for this. This is so juvenile.
Mr. Jones, do you currently have a relationship with any of the 3 or 4 women?
This one here.
This
No,
one.
he doesn't.
Shh,
I'm sorry.
No.
I apologize.
No.
I'm sorry.
So you currently have a relationship with a niece.
Yes.
How long have you had that relationship with a niece?
Since last year, we started dating each other and being in a relationship last summer.
How many children do you 2 have together?
1.
1.
Your other 2 children, do they have the same mother?
No.
What do you do for a living?
My teacher aide, bus aide.
Nothing.
Shh.
I'm sorry. I apologize. He's lying. I'm sorry.
Well, how was she taking me to work if she came over?
Just listen to me.
She's making up stuff.
Listen to me.
I'm sorry. I understand. I apologize.
Teachers' aid, bus aides don't
Yes.
make a lot of money.
Small money.
Small money doesn't make 4 children.
No, I make 4 children, but my money take care of my children.
Impossible. Impossible. Okay. Do you work, Anise?
Yes.
What kind of work do you do?
I work at a bakery.
How many children do you have?
5.
Do all 5 children live with you?
Yes.
You make a lot of money in the bakery?
No, I don't. I also go to school.
How is your family subsidized?
From me working and going to school.
How much money do you make at the bakery?
I make $5.50 an hour.
$5.50 an hour gross does not support 6 people, and he certainly doesn't make enough to support you and your children. What kind of work do you do?
I tutor children full-time, and I work at a floral shop part-time.
How many children do you have?
4.
What other support do you get for your children?
I receive food stamps, and that helps a great deal.
How old are your other children, Mr. Jones?
10, 2.
So you have a new child, not with either one of these 2 women.
Yes.
And shortly after that child was born, you renewed your relationship with a niece. Is that right?
Yes.
Excuse me, miss?
Shh. $183 is what the windshield cost you?
Yes, ma'am.
Pay it. $183. Judgment for the plaintiff.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I have no beef with her niece. I think she's a beautiful sister. She's striving to make it happen for her and her family.
It was a lie.
This is juvenile. I hover above it. As women, as mothers, our goal in life is to raise children and to raise a nation.
I have no idea.
wants me.
I don't want Jamar. We're just friends, and he knows this. This is fun to him.
36-year-old truck driver Regina Googler for filing a false report with Child Services. Jennifer says, as a result, her children were taken away.
Order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 390 on the calendar in the matter of Hopkins versus Googler. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. Be seated. Sir, have a seat.
Ms. Hopkins, the defendant is your mother.
Yes, ma'am.
And it is your claim that owing to the fact that your mother made a false report to Child Protective Services, your children were removed from your custody for a brief period of time. In addition to that, you lost your job and suffered other financial ramifications as a result of that false complaint. Your mother's response indicates that she told the truth. She doesn't deny that she made a report to Child Protective Services. Is that right?
That's right.
Your grandson was visiting with you.
Yes, he was.
How old is he?
9.
Your daughter has how many children?
2.
You have a 9-year-old and then a 5-year-old?
5-year-old.
5-year-old is a girl or a boy?
Boy, 2 boys.
And other than the 2 children, who do you live with?
My fiance.
Is he the father of either of these children?
No, he is not.
Do the 9-year-old and the 5-year-old have the same father?
No, they do not.
When was your grandson visiting with you?
I picked him up on October the 2nd. I took him home on October the 5th. And then I went back and picked him up again on October the 7th. And I kept him until October the 10th when the Sheriff's Department called me, took my statement, and asked me to bring my grandson to the police station.
Okay. Now, I'd like you to tell me, Ms. Kugler, what prompted you to call Child Protective Services?
My grandson, on October the 3rd, told his grandfather
Step up.
that Mommy had threw a phone and hit him.
You didn't hear this conversation.
No, he told his granddad.
Okay. Mr. Kugler, where were you when you had this conversation with your grandson?
In the front room of our house.
What prompted the conversation?
He came in, he was on the computer doing
school game, computer game, or race cars or something. And he came into me and he says, Daddy, my head hurts. And I says, what happened? And he says, Mother hit me with the phone. I looked at it and there was a bruise behind his ear and a little redness.
Just redness.
A little lump. Not
This was the day after he arrived.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Gina was at therapy treatment. When she came home, I said, Timmy came up to me a little while ago complaining of a sore behind his ear. It hurt. So we called Timmy back in, and he repeated it to us.
Did he say when that happened?
It was just the day before when he was over at the house with his mother.
No, Judge Judy. Timothy didn't give me the exact date, but he had told me that his mom, when his dad brought him home from a visit, had threw his Pokemon cards in the garbage.
Okay. And then what did he tell you?
He says, my mommy threw the phone, and it hit me right here, Grandma. I says, what happened, Timothy? He says, Mommy was mad because I was whining over my bicycle, my finger bicycle.
A finger?
Finger bike. It's a little bike that you play with, you can use for your fingers. And it broke, and Mommy was mad. And I went, okay.
That's not true.
Go ahead.
So I told him, I says, Timmy, I says, I know that you're 9 years old, and I know that you're a big boy, but Grandma needs to see you. I says, I need to see if there's any marks on you. There was black and blue marks on Timothy's bottom.
Where on his bottom?
They were across his bottom.
Across his buttocks.
Yes.
What did they look like?
They were black and blue marks.
Were they linear?
He had a bruise on his leg that looked like it was an electric cord that he got hit with.
Did you ask him about it?
I asked him, and he says, Mommy hits me with the belt wherever she wants to hit me.
Oh, my God.
So what did you do, Miss Googler?
I cried because I know how nasty my daughter's temper can be.
What did you do?
They called the police.
Miss Hopkins?
No, I did not, Your
What did
Honor.
you do?
I called CPS the following morning.
Okay, and you made a report.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Then you say on the 5th of October you brought your grandson back to his mother's.
Yes, I did.
Did you have any conversation with her when you brought
No,
the
I did
child
not.
back?
I did not ask her about it.
Okay. Was this the first time that you had noticed any bruises on your grandson?
No, it's not.
When previously to that had you noticed any bruises on your
Back in
grandson?
1998, when he was 5 years old, he had a bruise on his leg that you could tell it was a cord that had smacked his leg.
Did you have a conversation with your daughter at that time?
I told my daughter at that time that she needed anger management because she was very, very angry when it came to her kids. That same day that we got into that conversation, Your Honor, she told my grandson he didn't mind his grandpa one day. She told him if he didn't listen to his grandpa that she was going to pound the living out of him.
Okay. When you had this conversation with your daughter when your grandson was 5, did your daughter acknowledge at that time that she had in fact hit him?
No, she didn't.
When did either Child Protective Services, Ms. Hopkins, or the police come to your home?
October 10th. There was 2 reports made, one on October 3rd, the second one on October 10th. They said that I was accused by my stepfather, Mr. Googler, that I beat my son in the head with a phone. And I said, that didn't happen. What did happen was about 3 weeks before, Mr. Timmy got mad at me because I threw his Pokemon cards away.
Mr. Timmy, is that
That's what I would refer to my baby. Well, I have Mr. Timmy, Mr. Andy. Mr. Timmy got mad at me because I threw his Pokemon cards away because I don't approve of them. And he said, I want to call Grandma. I said, you're not calling Grandma. You're going to go to your room. He said, you're being just like Grandma says, Mom. And I threw the phone at the wall, and the phone did break.
When you threw the phone at the wall, did any part of the phone hit him accidentally?
I don't know. It could have. The battery in the back of the phone could have. But there was
Okay.
no marks on that child.
Okay, just a second. So that it is possible that part of the phone, when you threw it in anger, did in fact hit your son.
It could have.
It
could have.
could have.
It could have.
Now, as far as the mark that your mother says she saw on the child's buttocks,
She bumped her head.
pay attention to me. Have you ever used a belt or something else to reprimand your children?
I have spanked my son on his behind with my hand. I have never beat him with a belt, an extension cord, a vacuum cord, or anything
Or any
for that
other
matter.
kind of cord. When was the last time prior to October the 3rd that you spanked your son with your hand?
He doesn't get spanked all that often.
No, I'm just asking you because your mother says she saw.
My mother's a liar.
Just answer my questions, would you please?
Months.
Months.
It doesn't do
So
anything
that
to
would
spank Timmy.
Fine. Now, the Police arrived with Child Protective Services, and they arrived at your house on the 10th.
It was just the police at first. They
And
talked to me and my fiance. As soon as they left, I called my mother, and I said, you need to bring Timmy home because we need to have a family discussion. No, I don't want to bring him home. What's going on? I said, just bring him home. I'm going to lose my grandson. And she started crying. And I said, okay, I will meet you at your house, and we'll sit at your table, and we'll have a family discussion. We did so. Myself, my fiance, and my 5-year-old went to my mother's house. We sat at her kitchen table, and I said, Timmy, why did you say that? And he looked at my mother. And I said, Timmy, baby, you need to tell me because I'm in a lot of trouble now. Because I wanted to stay at Grandma and Grandpa's house for the rest of my break. I didn't want to go back to stay with my dad on the weekend. And I said, you shouldn't have lied. And my mother looked at Timmy and said, Timmy, you shouldn't have told Papa that if it wasn't true. You should not have lied to Papa. And he said, I'm sorry, Grandma.
Okay.
We left, and about 6 p.m., sheriff showed up at my house and took my 5-year-old and said that I was under investigation for child abuse and child neglect, and they took my kids.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Jennifer Hopkins says her mother, Regina Googler, filed a false report with Child Services. Regina says Jennifer threw a telephone at her 9-year-old son.
Okay. At the first court hearing, you were present?
Correct.
You had an attorney?
Correct.
And the Child Protective Services attorney was present?
Correct.
And a social worker?
Correct.
When was that hearing?
The first one was November 6th.
And at that point, both the children were out of your custody?
Yes. They were in
Who were
foster
they
care.
with? Both children were in foster care with
Yes.
strangers?
Uh-huh.
Were both of your children returned to you after the hearing of
Nope.
November 6th?
No.
They were not?
No, they went to their fathers. Timmy went to live with his dad in Barstow, and Andrew went to live with his father in Hesperia.
Okay. Were both fathers present at the hearing?
Yes, they were.
And the fathers had attorneys?
Yes, they did.
And the fathers wanted custody of the children, at least temporarily?
Temporary custody. They'd rather have them, and I would have rather had them with them than foster care.
Okay, but the judge did not return the children to you after the hearing?
No. He gave me visitation, supervised visitation.
Did your mother participate in that hearing, by the
No.
way? Only the social worker?
It was the 3 parents, the social worker, my attorney, and their attorneys.
And
were not
also an
allowed to.
attorney?
We were not allowed to do this. Judy.
No. Listen, I was in family court for a long time. That's how I can ask these questions. In addition to all of the adults and their attorneys, the children also had an attorney.
Correct.
And was it the position of the children's attorney that the children should not be returned to your custody at that time?
Correct.
So, Child Protective Services, after an initial evaluation, and a judge hearing the testimony, Ms. Hopkins, of the social worker, and the judge, after hearing the recommendation of the children's law guardian, decided not to return the children to you at that time.
Correct.
Then you had a second hearing.
January 8th.
And on January 8th, were both of your children returned to you?
Yes, they were.
At the
Both of them.
fact-finding hearing, did the court make a determination as to whether either of these children had been either abused or neglected?
I have a report from the social worker.
I'd like to see the court's finding.
I have this one here.
I'd like to see it, please. Am I correct that the recommendation of the court was that your older son be returned to his father?
That was my recommendation.
No.
If you read a little
The court's
further, you'll see.
recommendation in summary is it is recommended that the court finds the allegations of the original petition to be true as amended. And that is that you admitted
To throwing the phone.
to throwing the phone in the direction of the child. You admitted to that. So the court made a finding of neglect.
I admitted I threw the phone.
Then the court made a finding of neglect against you. And then there was a dispositional hearing. And at the dispositional hearing, it looks to me as if the recommendation was that Timothy go to live with his father and that custody be granted to the father. Now, did that happen?
That happen? Yes, it did. I gave
So
up
that both,
that right.
So I'm correct, Ms. Hopkins, that Timothy is now in the custody of his father.
Yes, he is.
So that both children are not in your custody. Only one of them is in your custody.
I let Timmy go live with his father. The social worker and the kids' attorney asked me if I wanted him to go live with his father, and I said, it's in there. And I said, yes, because he's been transferred to 4 different schools in 3 months.
Look, there was a complaint filed. A complaint was filed by your mother because of an allegation that your son made that he was excessively corporally punished by you. Under the circumstances, she did the right thing. She saw a mark on his ear.
There were no
I'm
marks.
speaking. She saw a mark on his ear that was consistent with being hit There is no question that your son, Timmy, told his attorney that he had in fact been hit by a phone or a piece of the phone by you in anger. The judge at the conclusion of the hearing made a finding that you did in fact neglect your child while in anger throwing an object which caused him to be injured. The judge set a disposition, which is deciding what to do about your two children, because if you were neglectful of one, the law presumes that you have neglected both. And the court scheduled a dispositional hearing. The recommendation that the court made was that your older child be turned over to his biological father and that custody be granted to the father. You may have agreed with that, but that was the recommendation. And that since you had attended anger management program,
Correct. Anger management and parenting.
I assume you would not have consented to unless you felt that you needed it.
I did need it.
And you went, and the judge at that time said that the judge would return your 5-year-old to you under supervision with a social worker who comes to your house occasionally.
He's home. That's the dispositional hearing.
I understand that. The 5-year-old was sent home to you, but Child Protective Services continues to monitor.
Correct.
Listen, I was in the family court 25 years. You're not talking to some jerk. Ms. Hopkins, what I'm telling you is you have no case against your mother at all because a court found that you had, in fact, neglected, under the law, both your children by losing your temper and throwing the phone. So the greater issue is, it seems to me that your children, your younger child at least, who is still in your custody, and probably your older child, who I assume that you see under this visitation arrangement.
He'll be home in 6 months.
Well, who knows whether he's going to be home in 6 months, Ms. Hopkins. You're not entitled to that child any more than his father is entitled to his custody. Wherever the child is best suited, that's where the child is going to be. Right now, you have a finding of neglect against you. If the child is thriving in the care of his father, that's where the child will stay. And no judge is going to remove that child from his father's care. Maybe that the child will come home, maybe not. Now, this fiancé of yours that you called your mother about to ask her to help you get him out of the house at one point, there is no question in my mind that happened. Now, my question to you is, you have two children. They have two different fathers. You have a fiancé. Is he still living with you?
Yes, 4 years.
What kind of work does he do?
He's a correctional officer.
Does he have children of his own?
No, he does not.
Do you see your 5-year-old grandson?
I don't see either one of my grandchildren. That's one thing. When I filled out the paperwork with the CPS people, they handed me a packet and asked me to fill it out. I did, and I put in the paperwork that I would like. I didn't mind if my grandchildren went to their fathers, or even if my daughter got them back. I would just like to have grandparents' visitation rights.
There was orders made January 8th. She is not to have any contact with either child because the social worker and the children's attorney and the social worker's supervisor found that she had lied to them and that the allegations that she had made were absolutely absurd. There were no marks when they removed the children from me. There was no marks whatsoever. They took them from me to the emergency room. There were no marks on the children.
Ms. Hopkins, the original complaint was made on the 3rd of October. And Timmy was not removed until the 10th of October. By that time, in that 8-day period, bruises go away, bruises fade. The fact that you acknowledge and that the court found that in anger you injured your son, which is what he reported to his lawyer. He didn't lie to his lawyer. He didn't lie to the social worker. And in fact, he didn't lie to his grandmother. And your mother didn't lie to Child Protective Services when she called and said he was hit behind the ear with a phone that Mommy hit him with. Well, to a 9-year-old, that's true. And the fact that by the time they removed him, whatever marks your mother saw on the 3rd of October had dissipated doesn't mean that you didn't see them on the 2nd. And all I can tell you is this. Children thrive on the widest possible community of love and affection. And it may or may not be that you will be successful in securing visitation rights.
She won't, Sam.
Shh. Pay attention to me. Right now, your daughter is very angry with you. And she may continue to be angry with you. All I can tell you is, all I can tell you is, listen to me very carefully. You did the right thing. And if by doing the right thing, you lose visitation with your grandchildren while they're little, that's a price that you have to pay. Because when your grandson came to you and said that he was the victim of his mother's temper, you had two choices. Either you do nothing or you become active. Now, it's very possible that your daughter would not have done anything to seriously or mortally harm either of your grandchildren.
Never.
But, well, you say never. If you have a temper and you throw a phone at a 9-year-old because he wanted to call his grandmother, wanted to go and stay with her, you threw away his cards, he was having a temper tantrum, and you, Miss Hopkins, responded by having a temper tantrum.
Correct.
That's not what a parent does. Parent does not have a temper tantrum.
You're right.
Okay? Now, you did the right thing because children have to be protected.
Yes.
And you have to say to yourself, I want to see my grandchildren, I want to be part of their lives, but if the price that I had to pay for losing that while they're little was making this call, I can sleep better because I made the call. Because if I didn't make the call and something happened, I would die.
Mm-hmm.
You got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Case is over.
What is our excuse? You may step out.
Well, she's still not going to see my kids.
My daughter is very angry, and I don't know why. She's been angry all her life.
I want her to stay out of my life.
I was on the local school board for 14 years. I saw a lot of child abuse cases. I couldn't stand seeing any more with our grandchild.
If there is something going on, then call for help. But if there's not, don't make a big thing of it.
28-year-old delivery person Virginia Hare is suing her former roommate, 52-year-old shoemaker Paul Darensborg, for a refund of rent, security deposits, and the return of personal belongings. Paul is countersuing for an assault and damage to his mobile home.
Order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please. Yeah, this is case number 341 on the calendar in the matter of Hare versus Darensburg. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
Miss Hare, you were a tenant of the defendants. Did you rent a room from him?
Yes.
According to your complaint, he unceremoniously threw you out after you had paid your rent for that month. He kept your security deposit, and he threw your stuff out after you. So it was destroyed on the curb. The defendant says he got drunk as a skunk while watching a football game. There was some betting going on, small-time betting, $5 anyway, when one team lost, and I know nothing about football except that they run around bases, that you went absolutely crazy. They don't run around bases.
Football,
No, I
they
know
run
that.
around a bit often.
I know. You destroyed the house, damaged his property, bit him a couple of times. He's countersuing for the damage you caused to his property, for the assault on him, these bite marks, for broken glasses, etc. So, how long did you live with the defendant?
Almost 2 months.
Now, this incident happened on, it must have been a Sunday because it was football, is that
Correct.
right? So, you were betting on a game, there was a bet, little
The
bet?
Rams.
The Rams.
I knew they were going to lose, and they did.
Now, you had been drinking that day?
All of us had.
So you had paid for how much of
I
the month?
prepaid 3 weeks for November's rent.
How much was the rent per week?
$75.
Oh, is that right, so far?
$75.
Had she prepaid any part of November's rent?
No,
No.
no, ma'am. No,
Was she
Your
up
Honor.
to date on her rent?
She was 2 weeks behind.
Do you keep rent receipts?
Oh, he kept them when he moved all my stuff out.
So you
Otherwise, I have
don't?
proof. I have no proof of anything.
All right, but proof is what we need in court.
Big time.
Big time. Okay. So you're watching the game. It's October 28th. The Rams lose like you knew they would lose. Everybody was drinking, including you. So what did you do?
Somehow we had a confrontation in which
Who had a confrontation?
me and Mr. Darnsborg.
What do you mean somehow?
Well, I don't know exactly how it started, but I do
Well,
know.
maybe if you don't know how it started, maybe he knows.
He does. Well, I'm sure he'll find a way to. Yeah.
Well, maybe he does. How did it start?
The Rams lost, and
Which was devastating to him.
she won the bet, which was $5, and she got real excited about it. She started jumping up and down, doing obscene gestures in front of the TV in front of me, and she jumped from one couch to another, jumping on people, all excited, bit a person before she jumped on my friend Eddie here. He said she slapped him or something like that, and then she leaned over and bit me right here. That's
On the
how
leg.
it started.
On the leg.
On the leg.
She wasn't angry.
She was happy.
She was happy.
Real
But
happy.
shh, hey, please. She was happy, but drunk.
Happily drunk.
What happened next?
Some kind of way she had spilled a beer on top of the stereo and knocked it over. Okay, that's when things really got excited. That's when I got mad.
You didn't get mad when she bit you?
I was furious then, and I got up, and that's when she got up, backed up, spilled the beer on the stereo, knocked it over. I don't remember exactly what I did at that instant, other than I eventually got over and got a rag and wiped off the stereo. I'm furious because I have a picture of it. The top of it is exposed. I paid good money for that stereo set. And people started getting up and walking around. You know, everybody's mad. This gentleman that's with her went into the restroom at the time, and she ran in there after him. That's when he said, I thought she attacked him. I think she did. He lost his step, fell down up against the wall. It's a mobile home, so the walls are prefabricated. And it was like a fight in there. So that's when I got up, grabbed her, pulled her into the living room, threw her on the couch, really. Tried to calm her down, and that's when Jim came out of the bathroom.
That's Jim, you're Jim.
Screaming to her to leave, and then they left. This is pretty much what happened.
Okay, so they left. And you changed the locks?
I changed the locks. She stayed, she was gone that night, and she apologized and thought everything would be okay, said she messed up, tried to give me and my friend Jim, Robert, a hug, and she did, but we just didn't want to do anything. I knew what I was going to do right then, and that was to go pick up 15 brand new boxes, box all their stuff up, quite a bit of stuff. I'm talking about she had boxes and clothes of things 3/4 of the way up the wall.
What'd you do with it all?
I put it on the street.
Did you call her and tell her you were doing that?
No, ma'am.
Well, why not?
I didn't feel a need to. I feel she's a criminal. I was afraid that she would possibly accuse me of something else. I had called the police earlier about removing her because she walks around the house with a glass pipe smoking and acting crazy from time to time.
Oh, my.
I asked the police what I should do about it, and
Don't tell me
they
what the
wanted
police
me.
told you. I just want to know. You put her things out on the curb, boxes
Yes, ma'am.
and boxes.
Yes, ma'am.
And you never called her to tell her that you were doing that?
No, ma'am.
Now, there came a time, Miss Hare, that you did, in fact, retrieve some of your property from
Yes.
this house.
Yes.
When was that?
When I came home from work that night.
You found what?
His friend Robert informed. I drove right past my belongings as I pulled into the mobile home park, not even seeing it. His friend Robert stopped me and says, Jenny, I got something I got to tell you. I feel I'm the best one to show you. And he turned me around and showed me there's all your belongings. They're on the street. If I didn't notice Jimmy's lamp, I wouldn't have noticed anything. And right then I was dumbfounded.
And you stayed there with your stuff?
Robert, his friend, stayed with my stuff. He made sure that nobody messed with my belongings. He said he sat there all day making sure nobody stuff.
Really?
Yeah, his friend Robert's a very nice guy.
I'm not Robert.
Oh, your friend
No,
Robert.
that's Eddie.
Oh, that's wonderful. So what kind of belongings do you say were damaged or taken?
Oh, the things that he didn't put out on the curb.
Like what?
My Ryobi drill, a hand cordless drill.
What else?
An umbrella, which is sentimental value.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the receipts, yes, the receipts that he failed to put back with my belongings. My pull-up bar, I know he still has in his backyard because I have driven by. I know that it's still there.
You what?
My pull-up bar. It's a workout bar.
Do you have a pull-up
It's a
bar?
parallel bar for doing pull-ups.
Pull-ups.
It's still there.
Do you want to give that to her?
Oh, yeah, she can pick it up 8 times
You have
she
a
likes.
drill of hers?
No, my friend Robert, which I didn't know he was doing it, he felt for what he was doing, he wanted to be compensated. He did take the drill and the umbrella.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Virginia Harris says ex-roommate Paul Darrensbourg kicked her out after an argument over a football bet. Paul says a drunken Virginia was acting crazy.
Did you bite him?
I might have.
May it cost you a drill?
That's why I figured, well, I won't get the drill back in working
You're
order
certainly
anyways.
not. And you have no proof that you paid
No
rent?
receipts. My witness here has seen my receipts.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
You know all the dates on the receipts, sir?
Oh, I don't know the dates, but I did see the receipts.
Well, of course
I
she
do know
kept
that
receipts.
they
She
were
was there for months.
rent receipts.
2 months.
Yeah, she was there for months, but she has no receipts into November. You didn't remember any receipts from November?
No.
I don't.
So we have no proof that you actually prepaid rent. How much was the security deposit?
$150.
Good. Now you want to tell me about your counterclaim? Your counterclaim says that she just threw stuff on your stereo.
Yes.
Did you have it fixed?
No, I haven't had it fixed.
Do you have pictures of it?
He had
Yes.
pictures of him and the lady over there on top of the stereo unit when the drink got spilled. And then when I heard that he says, I broke a stereo, well, why aren't the pictures wet?
You don't remember.
Here's This is the pictures of stereo, and this is the wall and the door to the roof, to the bathroom.
Wall to the bathroom.
Did you break the door to a wall in his bathroom as a result of an altercation that you were having with her?
No, ma'am, I never. And I don't believe she did either.
Well, you don't remember either. Step up here, please. Your last name is?
Crafton?
Did you see the plaintiff bite him?
No, I never.
Was she out of control?
She was a little wild, yes, I would say, but so were the rest of us.
Or was she out of control?
I wouldn't say out of control, no. I would say she was feeling pretty good, yes, like the rest of us. But I'm sure she knew what she was doing.
She doesn't remember what she was doing. She just told me that.
Well, I know that I did not do anything purposely.
You may not have done anything purposely, but if you damage the property, you got to pay for it. Got to compensate him for it. You have a counterclaim. I say it gets nothing, except I have to figure out whether or not she gets anything back from her security deposit. So you're saying that there was damage to your stereo, but you have no receipts for it. Is that right?
No, I have no receipts for the purchase
And she
of
damaged
stereo.
the door, which you didn't have fixed.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay, and you have no estimates for the
Yes,
door?
I have one estimate on
So
the
then
door.
I'd like to see the estimate.
But if I had money, Your Honor, to get the stereo fixed and to get this door fixed, I wouldn't be renting a room.
Listen, if you don't have an estimate, I'm not telling you to get it fixed. I can't tell how much it was going to be to have something fixed unless I have an estimate.
It's ruined. It was saturated. You can't
Well, I
spill
don't know
that much
that. Get
fluid
an
on us.
expert to come in and testify to that. $175. So that covers her security deposit. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Perfect. So the only thing I have to decide is whether or not you had a right to throw her out of the house unceremoniously. I believe that you did. I believe that she was acting in a totally bizarre manner, and that bizarre behavior may have been the result of liquor. But you didn't have to tolerate that in your home. She was a month-to-month tenant. You threw her out. Property went. She got all of her property back. You boxed it. The only thing you didn't get back was an umbrella and a drill, which Robert has. He doesn't have it. He has your pull-up bar, which he will see to it that is returned to you. You caused damage to the door, $175 worth, so you get no security back. However, the security was $150. The damage to the door is $175, so you're only down $25, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
You have any medical bills, any doctor's reports as a result of the bites
No, I
on
don't,
you?
Your Honor.
Okay, so you get $25. Don't get drunk. People look stupid when they get drunk, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I'm just happy that she's out of the house.
Glass pipe, what is that? You know, well, he had to make me look bad somehow.
I think everybody should be very careful on who you rent a room to.
Station attendant Mike Rice for damage to his home. David says he allowed Mike to throw a New Year's party and his friends trashed the house.
Mr. Kushel, do you live in a house or an apartment?
In a house, Your Honor.
Is it a house that you own or rent?
I own it, Your Honor.
Defendant was a friend of yours?
Correct.
According to your complaint, the defendant invited you to a New Year's Eve party that he was going to have at a hotel. You volunteered to let him have the party at your home. You were not going to be home New Year's Eve. Is that right?
He indicated he was going to have a get-together with a few friends, maybe up to a dozen friends at a hotel party.
Just listen to me. You volunteered to let him use your home. You weren't going to be home New Year's Eve. Is that correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
I'll get to some specifics in a minute. Let me just lay out the case. He had the party. Your house was trashed. You want him to pay for all of the damage that was done to your house.
Correct, Your Honor.
That's the case. And Mr. Rice says, what?
I was there.
Is not an answer.
Okay, sorry about that. I was there and I had a few friends over and some more showed up than I invited. And at midnight, some friends got in some fights and they broke some of his stuff.
So?
So I don't think I should be held responsible because it was my friends and not me.
You were there?
Yes, I was.
You know which friends damaged the property?
Yes, I do.
Sue them. After he sues you. Gave you permission to use his home for the purpose of a party.
Mm-hmm.
If more people show up than you had invited, you have a responsibility to eject them. If things get out of hand, you have the responsibility of calling the police. If either they refuse to leave or start to get into any altercations at the house. But you are responsible. He's not responsible. Why is he responsible?
It's his house and he never delegated any responsibility.
Of course he did. Let me see pictures of the damage to the house. I'm
There's a quote in,
inordinately
estimates.
calm because this is an inordinately easy case to decide.
I can go through the pictures if you'd like, Your Honor, explaining. Some are kind of hard to see.
What happened to the trees?
There was a lot of tracks through the yards. Cars had driven from the street through the yard and missed the driveway by a few hundred feet, apparently, and the trees must have been in the way. The dogs didn't know what to do that next morning. No post-traumatic stress disorder, but I think they're okay.
That's not on here, is it?
No, ma'am.
When did you buy this house, sir?
We finished construction about a year and a half ago, Your Honor. The estimates are just for materials. They don't include labor with the exception of the flooring.
Would you tell me why you let him use your house for this party?
Unfortunately, a few months before New Year's Eve, we'd lost a mutual friend to a motor vehicle accident. Mike indicated he was having a get-together with his friends at a hotel that was over half an hour from town. My house is in town. My roommate was going to be there. He was having a few friends over, and I felt that everything would be all right, and I didn't want to have that same experience with anyone else. You know, sometimes people have to drive after they've been, you know, getting together, and I know they could crash in my house and be no problem.
Well, they put cigarettes out on your floor, on your carpet. They put holes in your walls. How long had you been living there?
About a year and a half, Your Honor.
Looks like you did a nice job before the place got trashed. Anything else you want to tell me, Mr. Rice?
Yes, I believe that his roommate Chuck is also partially responsible. He had friends over with us. He was there the whole time. I believe
Yes.
that if he thought something was going on wrong, I mean, he lived there, he could have said something, told him to leave.
Why, were his friends involved in vandalizing the property?
No, they were not.
Yours were involved in vandalizing the property.
Yes, they were.
Then you're responsible, sir. You're responsible for their actions. Now, you can sue them and say, listen, I was forced to pay for the damage you did, but how do I know that you weren't partially responsible for the damage? How do I know that?
You don't.
I don't. If you know the names of the people who did, it's not up to him to go out and search for them. He was doing a good deed. What?
Your Honor, Chuck can explain what happened that evening to make it more clear in regards to what happened during the party. He was there the entire time and attempted to actually get it to slow down without success.
Chuck, you were unsuccessful. Don't get up. Mr. Kushel.
Yes, Your Honor.
You don't need any water. It's not going to take that long. You're suing the defendant for $3,000. Your costs are in excess of that, but that's your lawsuit, $3,000. And I assume, sir, your next stop is going to be small claims court, where you file a claim against all of these people to reimburse you for this $3,000, right? Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $3,000. Have a good day.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I think it's great. Judge Judy, she had a good verdict, and you know, we're going to get paid finally and get this house cleaned up.
She totally put everything on me, and I don't believe it was all my fault.
It was trash. I mean, unbelievable. It was like a tornado came through.
Some people got in some fight.
Bail bondsman Linda Awald is suing 31-year-old Lori Wilson for skipping bail.
Miss Awald, you are a bail bonds lady.
Correct, Your Honor.
You don't know the defendant other than through business, is that right?
Only through business.
According to your complaint, she contacted you because she was arrested for something. Pay attention, Miss Wilson. You were driving with a suspended license?
Yes, ma'am.
And she was being held in jail. She asked you to arrange the bail. You did. You claim she owes you some money.
Correct.
She never paid for the bond, which was $150.
That's right, Your Honor.
And she made a series of collect calls. When did she call you?
Starting on October 5th, as I accepted the calls, I noticed a very distraught young lady. She was crying all the time. I do have a heart, so it got to me a little bit, enough to where
What did she say?
She said she was in jail and she needed to get out.
How much did it cost for you to issue the bond?
$150, Your Honor.
And how is that done?
She had money on the commissary books.
What does that mean on the commissary books?
That means when she went into jail, she had $170.76 on her, and they confiscate the money, put it on their records, and issue her a check upon her release. Sometimes I do this, if they have the money on the books, it's issued in their name back to them, and then they must sign it and put payable to Linda Awald.
Now I understand. So you said, I'll get the bond for you, which will be $150, and instead of you getting your check for the money that you had when you were arrested, you'll assign it to me, and that's how I'll get paid.
That's correct.
Okay. So she was, in fact, released?
She was, in fact, released, yes.
What happened to her check?
The officer that was going to be releasing Miss Wilson told me that he would confiscate the check back from her and hold it for me. And the officer got slightly distracted, I believe, and he released her.
With the check?
He released her, and she picked up the check and ran.
Okay. When was she due back in court?
She was due back in court on the 7th of October.
Did she show up?
No, she didn't, Your Honor.
So what happened?
So that issues a warrant for her arrest. At that time, it is my duty to either recover her or arrange for a recovery agent, which was done. And she turned herself in after 2 weeks. She went to the courtroom, I believe on the 6th of November, and Ms. Wilson and I did talk a little bit. She came over and approached me, which I thought was big of her. Ms. Wilson was wanting very much to clear things up. She now has 3 children and 1 grandchild, and the grandchild means the world and all to her. I think enough to maybe turn her head at that point in time.
Did she give you your $150?
She never paid me.
Okay, Miss Wilson, let's go. Let's start with, you call her. You tell her you want her to bail you out of jail. She tells you it's $150. You tell her that you have a commissary check. You left with the commissary check. Why?
Because my boyfriend was supposed to have paid her.
He didn't.
I told her if he didn't pay, if she really didn't get her money, I told her I would give her her money.
But you didn't.
$10. No, I haven't yet. I don't have it, ma'am.
All right. So you didn't give her the $150. You have no proof that the boyfriend gave her $150, which is what you said in your answer.
He was supposed to when I
don't supposed to. All you had to do was say to your boyfriend, did you give her the $150?
I hadn't seen him.
But you did see him eventually.
Eventually, yeah.
So?
And he did say he didn't give her the money.
Why didn't you show up in court when you were supposed to on the 7th of October?
I really don't have a good explanation for that.
Okay, that's honest. You were arrested for driving with a suspended license?
Yes, ma'am.
This the first time you were arrested?
No, ma'am.
No. So you've been through bonding procedures before?
Yes, ma'am.
So you know the drill?
Yes, ma'am.
How many different bail bondsmen have you used in the past?
Just 2.
Did you stiff the last one?
No. I wasn't trying to take anything from her.
Yeah, you were. You took your money. You have 3 children. How old are they, Miss Wilson?
15, 13, and 11.
Who do they live with?
My mom.
Your 15-year-old has a child?
Yes, ma'am.
Where does that child live?
With my mother.
You don't live with your mother?
I moved in there about a month ago.
Your mother has custody of the children?
Yes, ma'am.
Who are you working for now?
I'm not.
You have a substance abuse problem?
Yeah, I'm an addict. I'm an alcoholic.
Have you ever been into a residential rehabilitation program?
Yeah.
How long?
60 days.
Didn't work? No.
No.
Why don't you try longer? Yeah, 3 children.
Yeah, I know.
Well, you're going to have to find something.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I've arranged for her a victory home. It's run by a pastor and his daughter, but this is a commitment on her part, and she must make that commitment voluntarily.
What got you so interested in her, Miss Awald? You don't go the extra mile for everybody.
No. I felt sorry. I have kind of a soft heart if they cry a lot. And she cried a whole lot. And I felt right away very strongly that this girl is on a dead-end road.
How old are you, Miss Wilson?
31. Yeah.
All right. You're a 31-year-old grandmother. Got 3 children, none of whom live with you. You could either be dead by the time you're 40, or you can be a parent to your children and a grandparent to your grandchild. It's all up to you. Probably been abusing yourself for a very long time. Time to stop. When are you going to stop? 31. When are you going to stop? When?
Now?
I hope so. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $250, that's all.
Oh, my God.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
It wasn't my intentions to take anything from her.
I do think that she intentionally would give me back that money on her own if she had the means to do that.
Just like to tell you I'm sorry, Linda.
I just hope that this will be enough to put her in the right.
Is suing the father of her child, 30-year-old baker Daniel Wilson, for throwing a rock at her car. Daniel denies the charge and is countersuing for a false arrest.
Order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 512 on the calendar in the matter of Gerstberger versus Wilson. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat.
Ms. Gertzberger, you and the defendant have a child together.
Yes,
How old is that child?
7,
And how long have you lived apart?
approximately 3 years.
According to your complaint, both of you were at your son's school, and outside of the school, the defendant was riding his bike, and you and your fiancé were in your car, and the defendant threw rocks at your car. The defendant says he never threw rocks at your car, but that you filed a false police report, as a result of which he was arrested, I assume, for vandalism. He was tried, found not guilty, and he wants to be reimbursed for his attorney's fees. Is that right?
Correct.
When did this incident occur?
September 6th of 2001,
What were you doing at the school?
dropping my son off for his first day of school.
And is that why you were there too, sir?
Correct.
Did you see the plaintiff before she went in?
Yes, I did.
And did you have any discussion with her?
No.
Is that correct?
No, it's not, Your Honor. My fiancé and I had arrived at the school to drop David off, and when we walked in the door, Daniel was standing there. There were words exchanged.
What kind of words?
The only statement that I heard at that time was Daniel make a reference to Paul, stating, "Just remember who his father is," referring to David.
Okay.
And Paul responded back with, "Well, who tucks him in at night?" At that point, I ushered my son
That was a
forward.
stupid statement.
Yes, it was.
Of course it was.
The words were exchanged. Unfortunately, I ushered my son away from it because I didn't want him to have to hear that. We proceeded to go up to the classroom to drop him off.
You both went into the classroom.
Yes,
Who left first?
Daniel did.
No, that's not correct.
Who left first?
They did. I waited for them to leave because me and Paul were still arguing in the classroom over the fact that they had written my son's last name as David Wilson Bass on his folders, and I introduced myself to my son's teacher as my son's father, and he tried to introduce himself as my son's father, and that's where the altercation began.
Did you introduce yourself as the child's father?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Did you know that the defendant was going to be there that day?
No, I did not, ma'am.
We
Well,
do
I
have
feel-
joint custody of the child.
All right. What happened when you got outside? You tell me first, your version.
Okay. Paul and I had stopped on the way out, spoke to a couple of friends. When we got outside, we had proceeded to the truck. Daniel was on his bike riding up the street. We drove up the street and the
Past
rocks.
him?
Yes.
Go ahead.
And I heard something hit the vehicle. I looked out, and Daniel was there. I assume what he threw was rocks, causing the damage. I do have pictures of the damage he caused. We proceeded up the street to a red light. We got to that red light. Daniel had gotten up there also. An altercation ensued where...
Tell me about the altercation.
Daniel was outside of the vehicle, yelling, screaming.
You mean he got off the bike?
Yes, being very irate. Paul was inside the vehicle, and he was trying to get out of the vehicle. I was trying to keep Paul in the vehicle, saying, you know, he's not worth this. You're just going to get in more trouble. You know, don't bother. We'll go to the police and let the police handle it. And that was the end of it. We went to the police station, filed the police report, and got an estimate for the damage.
Okay, now let me hear your version of these events, sir.
Okay, on that day, September 6, 2001, I was in my son's classroom after they
Don't
had...
start from the beginning. Just go to, now you're outside. You have words
Okay.
with Paul, who said some stupid things.
Okay, I'm coming to the front door of the school, and I look out the window of the school door, and I see right directly across the street their vehicle. They're in it, and they leave. I then proceed a quarter of a mile down the walkway to a bike rack where my bike was locked up. They must have turned around and came back because they came down Girard Avenue, and Paul was yelling out the passenger window saying, "I ain't no effing father, I'm big fat," this and that and everything else.
To you?
To me. So I then proceeded to get on my bike to just leave. So I made a left and turned down 66th Street, and they come up behind me. They swerve at me, yelling out the window, I better pedal because I'm big and fat and everything else. And they continued down 66th Street. When I got to where Dunkin' Donuts is, they were at a red light, and there's an alley behind Dunkin' Donuts. I took my bike, went behind the alley. I then went home and proceeded to file a police report against Mr. Bass and received a restraining order and had it issued for the incidents that occurred that day.
Can I see your copy of the police report, please?
I don't have a police report, ma'am. I was unable to get one. I also, however, was issued a restraining order against Daniel.
So you have mutual restraining orders?
Yes.
No, her restraining order is no longer in effect due to the fact that she got a restraining order based on the false charges that were filed against me, and when I won my criminal mischief case and it was all dismissed, they told me that the order of protection was also dismissed with it.
Okay, so you have an order of protection?
On Mr. Bash, yes, I do.
Now, there's something in the papers here that you folks are involved in some family court proceedings. Is that right?
Yes.
Tell me about those proceedings.
It's a very messy relocation hearing.
Who wants to relocate?
I do.
Well, where do you want to go to?
I want to go back to Pittsburgh, which is where I'm originally from. I have a job waiting for me.
And where do you live, sir?
Niagara Falls.
And you lived together as a family with your son for 4 years before you separated?
On and off, Your Honor. It wasn't a steady 4 years. There was a history of physical abuse, verbal abuse. It was ugly.
Well, maybe the judge will let you go back to Pittsburgh.
I'm hoping.
Well, but not with your son. You can go back and live with Paul. You don't take the child away just because you have a job.
Well, we haven't
Mothers
had
think
any
that they can just
hearings.
pick up their children and leave and go hundreds and hundreds of miles away for somebody. You have an order of joint custody?
Correct.
And that case was ongoing when you had this case?
Yes.
When this situation took place?
Correct.
Yes.
It was 3 days before the actual trial was going to start.
Well,
And if they would have got...
how fortuitous to have him arrested for criminal mischief at that time.
Your Honor.
Especially when you're going through a situation. Listen, I want to tell you something. You may have found a new life, and that's wonderful. And you may have found a very nice man to be, surrogate father when his father isn't around, to be there and to be another male influence, and hopefully it's a good influence, and that's fine. But you're not his father. End of discussion. You're not his father. And you don't say to his father, who tucks him in at night. That's a really dumb thing to say. And you certainly don't register a child at school and give a last name as Bass.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Sherry Gertzberger says the father of her child, Daniel Wilson, threw a rock at her car. Daniel claims the incident started when Sherry's fiancé insulted him in front of their son.
All right. According to your testimony today, madam, you did not see him throw anything at your car.
No.
If I believed your story that he merely chased you on his bicycle while you were in a truck, which doesn't sound normal. Maybe it was a pebble that hit your car. Who knows?
Your Honor?
If anything hit your car. But you didn't see him hit your car at all.
No, but my witness did.
Really? Call the witness.
Well, I'm a little nervous, Your Honor. Just bear with
That's
me.
very good.
Okay, now on that
You're
day-
screaming out the window at him.
No, that's not how... No, Your Honor. Okay, after we left the school, there was no word said to him. Okay, we were driving down the car, down the street in our car. Okay, he's on his bike. We drive past him.
Why?
As we drive past
Just a
him,
second.
that's the way we
Why?
leave, Your Honor, because that's the road that you take to leave.
Then why didn't you wait? Why didn't you wait? If you had had negative confrontation with him in the school, which you did, and if you see him, put that down, please. If you see him on his bicycle, and if you don't want to get into a confrontation with him again, then you wait 5 minutes, and you say, listen, let him move on with his bicycle so that he's far away so we don't get into this problem. And if you absolutely have to leave, take another route if you're not looking for trouble. Now I'll continue to hear you. You have a good reason to be nervous. Go ahead. Make sure that everything you say is accurate.
All right, Your Honor, it is accurate. Okay, and like I said, we were driving down the street. Okay, as we passed him, I seen him throw, I think it was rocks, at the vehicle. I heard
He had
it
it in his
hit.
hand while he was driving the bicycle.
Yes, Your Honor, that's right.
Okay, sit down.
Okay.
Now, the fact that you were found not guilty after a trial does not necessarily mean that you didn't do it. It
Correct.
just means that the district attorney was not able to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. You understand?
Correct.
But I don't think that they've proven that You damaged the car. I certainly think that the plaintiff had sufficient reason based upon things that were happening at that time. She wanted to be certainly back in Pennsylvania at the beginning of the school year with her child, and she thought she'd be able to get that easily, that it might have been advantageous for her to file charges against you, and thinking that maybe that would give her a leg up in the proceeding.
Your Honor?
Certainly they exercised poor judgment. You exercised poor judgment when, according to him, you saw him leaving the school and got into your truck and followed in the same direction that he was going after there had already been a verbal confrontation in the school, and there should never have been a verbal confrontation in the school involving these two gentlemen when the child was around. That's very bad judgment.
Okay, Your Honor.
Yes.
This man, there's a history here with this. He has done other damage to my vehicle. In August of 2001, he was supposed to be registered in anger management courses to learn how to control his temper with a severe physical abuse problem. Drugs, alcohol. He ran the whole spectrum of problems. And he was also on conditional release and probation for a previous conviction on a forgery charge. I'm not looking for a problem with him. I'm not looking
Then you shouldn't
for
have followed
any further
him.
problems.
Then you shouldn't have followed him.
I should be allowed to drive down any street that I would like to drive down.
Not if you're afraid of him. If what you say is that he has this anger problem, then it would seem to me, if you were a prudent person and say, listen, I don't want to get into a confrontation with this man who is violent. Let's sit in the truck for 3 minutes and let him drive away. Someone that I was afraid of and I thought had a violent temper had gone, left the location. I would sit there and wait until the parking lot was empty before I got up to leave. Or I would take a different route even if it took me a half a mile out of the way. I wouldn't go looking for trouble. And as I explained to you, sir, the district attorney was not able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you did throw a rock or something else at the car. I'm not satisfied that you didn't, so I'm not giving you your attorney's fees. Bottom line is, you weren't found innocent. You were found not guilty. There's a big difference. You understand?
Correct.
Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
He's been arrested numerous times for forgery, abuse, drugs, and he gets away with everything.
They get away with a lot more than anybody really knows about.
This man does whatever he wants, and nobody seems to ever do anything about it.
Dina Mason is suing her ex-boyfriend, crane operator Jeff Campbell, for an unpaid loan to buy a truck. Jeff says it was a gift because Dina didn't like his old truck.
Order. All rise. Now, this is case number 497 on the calendar in the matter of Mason versus Campbell. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Ladies, have seats, please.
Miss Mason, how old are you?
I'm 39 years old.
You have children?
3.
How old are they?
12, 13, and 15.
What do you do for a living?
I'm an advertising representative.
According to your complaint, in 2001, you loaned Mr. Campbell, who you were dating, $4,000 to put down as a down payment on a truck.
Yes, I did. Mr. Campbell didn't have a vehicle.
Now, listen to me. I didn't ask you a question yet.
I'm sorry.
And the understanding was that if you loaned him the down payment, he would take care of the rest of the payments, and he would pay you back this $4,000. Mr. Campbell's defense to this action is that it was a gift. Is that right, sir?
That's right, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's do the facts that we know. She put down $4,000 on a truck that was purchased in your name. Is that right?
That's right.
And you took out a car loan for the rest.
That's right.
Now I want you to convince me that this was a gift.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm ready.
Well, I was perfectly happy with the vehicle that I had. She told me that she would like for me to have a nicer truck, and she did not like my truck being parked in front of her house because it was a ranch truck. There was nothing wrong with it. It was an older truck, but I was perfectly fine with it, and it was in good shape. And one day she come home and she said, I got an advance on my check. Let's go look for a truck. So we went and looked for a truck.
Okay, so she said to you, I want to go look for a truck. And what did you say to her?
I said, that's fine. So we went and looked. And it just happened to be that day we found one. And I told her it was too much because we already found out the bank would only loan me $15,000.
When did you find that out?
Like 2 or 3 days before, I believe.
Well, what were you even checking into that for, sir, if you didn't want a new truck?
Because she had mentioned it prior to this.
What do you mean she had mentioned it prior to this?
She just wanted me to have a nicer truck. And I said, I don't even think I can get approved for the loan.
You said, I don't even think that I can get approved for the loan, but I'm going to check and find out. And then you called to see.
Yes, she asked me to go down
So
there.
it wasn't that she just came home one day and said to you, I want to go buy you a truck. This is a discussion that you had had with her previously,
Yes, ma'am.
and that you actually went so far as to call up to find out how much money you could get on a loan.
Yeah, to check my credit, see how bad
Right.
it was.
Keep going.
And we went and looked that evening, and we found a truck, and I thought it was too much.
Look at me.
I thought it was too much. And so she was good with bargaining with people, and she knew the owner. So we went and we talked to them. She got the truck down to what she thought was reasonable.
But what did you think? Don't you have a brain?
Yes.
And what did you
Yes.
think?
I thought it was still a little too high.
Is that what you told her?
Yes.
So you said it's too much.
It's too much.
Too much. Can't do it.
That's right.
That's what you said.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So we signed the paperwork. I signed the paperwork. She got it to where she
Well,
thought.
why would you sign the paperwork if you said, no, it's too much?
Because she said she was going to put the down on it. And I said, are you sure that's what you want to do? And she goes, yes, it's no problem. So that's what we did.
So that was in May of 2001.
2001.
What happened after that? How long did you stay together after that?
We stayed together approximately a year.
You lived together?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right?
No.
When did you stop living together?
We stopped living together approximately August of 2001.
Does that sound right, sir?
It could be. I'm not very good with dates, Your Honor.
Well, try years.
I'm sorry.
Don't get sorry. Try to get intelligent. May 2001 is when you bought the truck.
Yes.
How much after that did you and the plaintiff separate?
Well, we separated a few times in between. We were off and on, off and on, off and on.
When was the last time that you actually lived together, I assume, in her home?
It had been last year in, I'd say, June.
Is that right?
No, ma'am.
Has he stayed in your house since August of 2001?
He came and stayed at my house in December of 2001 for about 4 days.
Why?
I felt sorry for him because his dad had kicked him out.
Is he a drinker?
No.
Does he use drugs?
No.
Why did his dad kick him out?
They live in an old trailer in
I don't care if they live in an
Wasco,
old trailer.
and they just always got in fights and arguments.
Yeah.
And he came and stayed at my house, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't have you here. I was only going to let him stay for a couple days. And
You know,
it
there
looked
was
like
some
he
other
getting
trouble
very
with him, too, was there not, Miss Mason, that you seemed to allude to in your complaint, people looking for him for money?
Yes.
When was that?
It was in September of 2001. The first case was he owed some money for a horse, and I had given him the money already. It was a horse for my daughter, and I wasn't aware that he hadn't paid the man. And he came into my house hostile, and I said, I'm sorry, I don't know where Jeff is at. And I own a 30-foot camping trailer at Aljo with 2 pop-outs, and the guy did not believe me that it was mine. And so I had to literally pull out my paperwork of the lease and show it to him that it was not Jeff's, because he wanted to put a lien against it. Then we had a girl come to the door. She threatened to tear my vehicle apart and repossess anything that I had, because he told her it was his home, his vehicles, and he felt sorry for me and my children, so he was letting us stay there. And that's how he got people to let him live in their homes.
You mean, and after this, you let him come back to your house in December? Why?
I felt sorry for him.
He already left you holding the bag for $4,000. Why would you feel sorry for him?
I'm just a nice person.
Who are you?
I'm his ex-girlfriend. Part of this is true and part of it's not true. Jeff and I got together early November of 2001. We were together for approximately a month. Dina came to my home and started calling my home, harassing him, calling him, wanting him back.
Wanting him back or wanting her money?
Wanting him back. She did not want money. She never brought up anything about money for the longest time.
Did you speak to her?
Yes, I did.
Well, tell me about the conversation you had with her in November of 2001.
That they were still together. He was living with her. She wanted to know who I was, what was going on between us. And I
Was
said,
he living at your house?
Yes, he was, ma'am.
How much rent was he giving you?
Nothing.
Where did you meet him?
I met him through a friend. We knew quite a few people that were mutual friends.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a cashier.
What does he do for a living?
He's works in the oil fields.
Doing what?
Tearing down the big pumping units.
How often does he do that?
Well, Monday through Friday.
Then what does he do with his money?
He spends it.
On what?
Dirt bikes,
What else?
clothing, dirt bikes. We eat out.
What else?
That's about it.
Really? I doubt that. I have a good nose for that. Somebody who works construction makes a lot of money. And unless he's supporting a whole gaggle of children, there are only a few things that you get addicted to that prevent you from providing for your own sustenance, like rent and food and clothing and cars and other things. One of them's gambling. I assume he's not a gambler, is that right?
No.
And then there are a couple of other things that you can become addicted to that also take a lot of money.
Ma'am, his dirt bike takes a lot of money.
How much did he pay for the dirt bike?
I don't know how much he paid for the dirt bike. He had it before we got together.
When you say it takes a lot of money, how much is a lot of money?
Well, he's quite frequent with blowing them up, and he spent, I know, of at least $1,000 or more at a time rebuilding it.
What do you mean he blows them up? What does that mean?
He rides them hard and blows the motors up.
Do you have children?
Yes, I do.
How many children do you have?
I have 2.
How old are they?
9 and 4.
Why would you want them around somebody who has a fried brain?
Because I don't believe that he has a fried brain.
He does. He does. He's an amoral person who has a fried brain because he's over 25 years old. He sucks off women, vulnerable women with children who are really trying to, they're living from hand to mouth because it doesn't look to me as if you're a trust fund child. Right? So he's sucking off you. He sucked off her. Whenever he gets some money, he blows it on things for himself, and then he doesn't treat those things with any kind of respect. According to you, he'll spend $1,000 on a dirt bike, and he rides it hard and blows up the motor. Well, that's something that somebody might do if they were 15, but not somebody who's in their mid-30s, unless they get women to take care of them and support them. Then he can take all the money he gets from his construction and oil stuff and do with it whatever he wants. Whatever toys he wants to play with, and whatever things that he needs to make him feel good. So if you want to expose your children to a person with that kind of character, that's your problem. That doesn't make you very smart. Do you understand?
Yes.
She wasn't very smart. She got snookered for $4,000. But you're not going to get it back because you got snookered for it. You gave it to him. You didn't loan him this money. He said he wanted it, and you said, I'm going to give it to you. You want to know how I know that? Because if in December of 2001 somebody who had snookered me out of $4,000 and made a fool out of me came to my house and said, I need a place to stay, I would have called the police and said, I have somebody trying to get into my house. Get him away from here.
Ma'am.
That's why. Yes.
On that, as far as that goes, Dina called my cell phone and begged him to come back to her. He was living with me at the time.
Listen, my dear, I've been around a little longer than you have. My eyesight isn't so good. I look at him and I see nothing that I would wipe my feet on. Do you understand?
Yes.
So the fact that the two of you seem to be enthralled with him, maybe he has some hidden attribute that certainly I don't see, You want him? That's your business. There was no loan. You bought him a truck. Get over it. Your case is dismissed.
Thanks, Doc.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
He was hoping he wouldn't have to put it down.
She just thought she had to have a nicer vehicle in front of her house. Well, she had one for a while. Now she don't.
He said he would give it back to me in a couple days. It never happened.
Just got tired of her and the crap.
He got so much self-confidence having the vehicle, he ended up with about 4 girlfriends to go with it.
I'd rather be with my bikes. I'm an adrenaline junkie.
Date someone who...
Amy Killingsworth is suing 28-year-old in-home caregiver Talicia Chames for assaulting her in a parking lot. Talicia says Amy nearly ran over her 9-year-old son.
Order. All rise. Yes, this is case number 541 on the calendar in the matter of Killingsworth versus Chames. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Gentlemen, have seats, please.
Miss Killingsworth, it's your complaint that the defendant assaulted you after an incident that started in a parking lot.
Yes.
When did this happen?
It was on May 16th of 2001 at about 5:30 p.m.
What kind of parking lot was it?
It was a department store parking lot.
Tell me what happened.
My son's dad, Robert Cook, had asked me to come pick him up after I got out of work. It was him and a friend of his. I went to pick him up. As I circled the parking lot after picking them up, I started going by the department store, which is the front of the store. And I do have pictures of the front of the store to show you where they would have been coming out and the fact that there were no stop signs or
let me just take a look.
Pedestrian walks. As I was approaching, you know, I wasn't speeding or anything like that. I saw the defendant and this gentleman here with maybe a 3 or 4 year old little boy coming out of the department store. As they were coming out, I was kind of driving past them, and I felt, in my judgment, that I had plenty of time to pass before, you know, they were actually into the street. So as I'm coming up, passing them, I could hear them start cussing at me, called me a white, and of course I was immediately offended by that. And as I was passing, I put on my brake and proceeded to flip them off. Wasn't sure totally if they saw me, but, you know, then I headed on out of the parking lot.
She probably just should have kept going without reacting.
Exactly, and I apologize for that sincerely because I realized I made a big mistake.
Okay.
I left the parking lot, and as I was leaving out onto the street, there's a gas station that, as you can see in the pictures, is located ahead of it. It's the mobile gas station. The gentleman that was with my son's father asked if we would stop at the payphone so that he could make sure that wherever I was taking him to, that they were home, and I said fine. From my car at that payphone, I looked across the parking lot, and I remember Rob and I commenting that, you know, they were like staring us down and looking at us from the parking lot. It kind of worried me at first, but I didn't think much of it. And we're, you know, still waiting for this gentleman to use the phone. And next thing I know, they come pulling up next to my car.
They had gotten into their car?
They had gotten into their car, yes. And there was a small child staring at us out the back window of the car.
Okay.
And both of them immediately got right out of the car, and they started towards my car. And I remember him saying, like, what? You know, like going, what? And I was scared. I didn't know what to do, and as she was approaching my vehicle, she had her fist ready, and I knew something, you know, my window was probably down like that far.
You were still sitting in your car?
I was still sitting in my car. I never ever got out of my car. They proceeded to start kicking on my car door, and I told them to get the F off my car. And as soon as I said that, she punched me right in my face, and my tooth went directly through my lip. Blood was all over my inside of my car, all over me. And I didn't know what to do. I was kind of disoriented, to be honest with you.
But you never got out of your car?
I never got out of my car.
Up until that point?
Up until that point, no.
Never got out of your car. So she punched you through your car window?
Through my window was probably down about that far.
Okay, I'll hear you.
Okay, as me, my boyfriend and my son was leaving Value City parking lot. As you see in her pictures, that is a little walkway where you come out the store and you walk across the street. I was walking with my son. I had him walking in front of me. When she was coming down to leave out the driveway, she was speeding. As she's speeding through, she had to go around my son, avoid hitting him.
How old is your son?
My son is 9.
So she went around him?
Right.
Go ahead.
So as she did that, I said she is lucky she did not hit my son.
Is that what you said?
Yes, that's what I said.
Just a minute. You said, you're lucky it didn't hit my son.
Yep.
Okay.
She hit her brakes. She gave me the finger. I told her to pull over. So she went to the gas station.
Okay. And what did you do?
I went over to the gas station.
Just a minute. You told her to pull over?
Yes.
Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
And she didn't pull over in the parking lot? That's clear. She didn't pull over in the parking lot. So you and your boyfriend and your son got into your car, and you followed her to the gas station?
Yes.
Of course you did. And what happened when you got to the gas station?
When I got to the gas station, I approached her car.
Now, just a minute. You got out of your car?
Yep.
And what about your boyfriend? Did he get out of the car?
No, not when I did.
Okay, so you jumped out of the car first?
Yes.
And what did you say when you got over to her car?
Did she realize she almost hit my son?
You said that in a calm manner, just like you're saying it to me now.
I was upset, but I wasn't outraged. I was in control of myself.
Okay. So you were in control, and you walked over to her window and said, did you realize you almost hit my son?
Yes.
And she said?
She said, and she swung her arm, and when she swung her arm...
How did she swing her arm?
Her hand came up, like, towards me through the window.
Through the window?
Yes. And that's when I reacted, and I punched her through her window.
Wrong! Wrong! Let me just explain something to you. The window is partially open. You come up to her. She's not out of the car. And you say her hand came up? I mean, if her hand came up
The window was...
You're in the car, so you're driving this way. So it would have to be her left hand
The
would
window
have
was down.
come sort of this way out of the car window.
Her hand came out.
You're lucky you're not Pinocchio, because your nose would be growing that long.
hurt.
Oh. You were furious. You were furious. You were furious enough to get into your car and follow them to the gas station, to get out and confront her. Who was kicking her car? Which one of you two geniuses were
Nobody
kicking her
kicked her
car?
car.
You
Nobody.
genius or her genius?
Nobody kicked her car.
Right. Nobody kicked her car and nobody assaulted her. Let me see whatever bills you have. Did you seek any medical treatment, pictures?
Actually, when the ambulance they pulled up and assessed me, they said that most of the damage was on the inside of my mouth and that it would cause more of a scar if I did go to the hospital. I also did not have medical insurance, but I do have where I went to a plastic surgeon because it will cost me to replace the scar on my face. And I also
Could you
have
step up? I want to see the scar that you're talking
Sure.
about. Did you take any photographs, by the way?
Yes, I did.
I'd like to see them. Don't have it fixed. Step
Thank
back.
you.
Don't have it fixed. More aggravation to have it fixed. Looks just fine.
Thank you.
You get older, it's just another one of those lines that's going to creep around your face. You just sort of have a preview of what the other side's going to look like.
Right.
I know you don't understand that because you have a mustache.
I thought it was because black don't crack.
No. You're not going to escape. Nobody escapes, kiddo.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Amy Killingsworth says, during an argument in a parking lot, she was struck in the mouth by Talisha Chains. Talisha says Amy swung first.
Now, was she arrested?
Actually, no. I wrote down her license plate number. May I also say that the gentleman did also hit me from within my car. He hit me 3 times in the back of my head.
That's not true.
I have not seen him since, and I'm kind of emotional about it, but yes, he did. He's the one that kicked on my car door. Actually, both of them were. She was more towards this side of my car. He was right at the side.
Out of control.
And
they
he
were out
spit in
of
my
control.
face.
Now, let me tell you this, Mr. Killingsworth. When you're in a parking lot, you're supposed to go very slowly, and if you see somebody, especially if you see people with children, whether there's a stop sign or not,
I agree.
they got the right of way.
Yeah.
No question about that. They got the right of way. That does not excuse the violence that came as a result of that, especially violence in front of your child. What you do is you explain to your child that that woman there did not do the right thing. You're driving a car. You don't try to get around people who are crossing. Would you stop smirking? It's really irritating to me.
She's talking to me.
Excuse me? You're lucky you weren't arrested. I don't know why you weren't arrested. I would have arrested you.
All I got was the license plate, and we didn't know who they were.
How did you finally find out who they were?
She ended up working at a call center that I used to work at. My sister had went up there to visit some friends and saw the car in the parking lot, remembered the license plate number I had given to her, and I know all the managers up there, and I was given her name. And
You mean after they assaulted you, they just took off?
They took off. Because Robert got on the phone to call 911, and as soon as they saw that he was on the phone, they took off.
Just stop a second.
He was already on.
Bird, would you get him out of here? I can't stand to look at him with that smirk.
Sure thing. Come on, man.
Aside from the fact he thinks he's going to a basketball game, that outfit, instead of court. Your lawsuit seeks $3,000 in damages.
Yes, ma'am.
You got it. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,000.
Thank you so much.
Excuse me, let's step out.
She started it all. Now she's trying to act like she's the victim.
And her lip cut up, whatever.
I would have never tried to hit any child, and that was not how it went.
She's looking all innocent with her crying and things, but what really happened is what really happened.
Keep to yourself.
Cry, show a little emotion.
21-year-old car service writer Billy Phillips is suing his ex-girlfriend, 21-year-old receptionist Emily Crane, for a down payment on a car. Emily says Billy took the vehicle back.
Mr. Phillips, let me see if I understand your complaint.
Okay.
I really wasn't quite sure that I was reading it correctly.
Okay.
You and the defendant dated. She needed a car or wanted a car. You made the following agreement with her. You would purchase a car in your name.
Correct.
You put down the deposit, which was $1,000,
Correct.
and you were going to take care of the expenses on the car until she turned 21.
That is correct.
And when she turned 21, she would take over all of the payments and give you your $1,000.
Correct.
Before she turned 21, the two of you broke up.
Yes.
So after you broke up, you went and took back the car.
Correct.
Before she was 21.
Yes. In the beginning
Now
of...
you have possession of the car.
Correct.
And you want her to pay you the $1,000 deposit.
Correct.
Are you nuts? Mr. Phillips, your original agreement with her was she turns 21, she gives you back your $1,000, and she takes over the car payments. And when she's paid it off, you give her the pink slip to the car, so that it's titled in her.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
What was the reason you took the car back before she turned 21?
Because the car was still in my name.
Oh, but that's not her fault.
I'm not saying it was, Your Honor. I just...
But you breached the agreement, sir.
So...
You breached the agreement. She didn't breach the agreement by not turning 21 earlier.
I'm not saying
She has to wait until she's 21. That's something beyond her control. You breached the agreement by taking the car back. Now, if she had turned 21 and she did not give you back your $1,000 and assumed the car payments, then you have a right to take the car back and say, you breached the agreement. You didn't give me back my $1,000, but you made it impossible for her to perform her agreement with you because you repossessed the car. Why do you think you're entitled to your $1,000?
Basically because that was the agreement we agreed on.
No, it wasn't. The agreement that you had, sir, was that she was going to give you the $1,000, pay off the car, and have a car. That was the agreement. She wasn't going to give you the $1,000 and pay off a car with you in possession of the car. She was going to have a car to drive around in. You took back the car before she turned 21. Am I getting through to you?
Yes, you are getting...
Perfect. Case dismissed.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy was right.
Judge didn't see it my way, so I lost.
He lost the case that had no right to ever come to court.
I trust somebody, go into a relationship with somebody, and that's the bottom line, I guess.
He is pathetic and upset that I'm not with him anymore.
She had promised me on many occasions, but it doesn't matter. The judge ruled the way she...
4-year-old Rusty Wooten and his father, 49-year-old carpenter Randy Wooten. Diane says, during a confrontation in a video store parking lot, Rusty and Randy vandalized her car.
Order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please. Your Honor, this is case number 463 on the calendar in the matter of Welch versus Wooten. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Gentlemen, have seats, please.
Well, my reading of the complaint and the answer in this case indicates to me that this was a monumental example of bad judgment on a lot of people's parts. Ms. Welch, you want the defendant and his son, co-defendant, to pay for damage to a car that was being driven by your son. It seems to me this was a retaliatory act, according to you.
Yes.
Or something that was done by the defendant's either one son or two. The defendant was there in a parking lot. They all got together to rumble. What's going on? Were you there?
No, ma'am.
Who was there?
My son and his friend.
Son and friend, step up here. Miss Welch, why don't you sit down, please? Who's the son?
Me.
Your name is Chad?
Yes, ma'am.
And you are?
Josh Laughlin.
You're Josh. So we have Chad on one side, Josh on the other. You don't mind if I call you Josh, do you?
No, ma'am.
All right. What is your name, sir?
Rusty.
Rusty. And this is your father.
Yes, ma'am.
Your name?
Justin.
Justin, you were there too?
Yes, ma'am.
Ah. But so were you, Mr. Wooten.
Yes, ma'am.
So why don't you tell me, Chad, how this started?
Well, they called me and told me to...
Who called you?
It was Larry and Justin. And Larry...
Larry?
Yes, ma'am.
Not here. Larry and Justin.
Yes, ma'am.
Justin, raise your hand. Step up. Move over a little bit. That's it. So Justin called you.
Yes, ma'am.
So far, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did Justin say when he called you?
He asked if we would come to the video store so we could talk and get the problem straight.
Now, what kind of problem had you had with Justin?
They said I broke into their house.
When did they accuse you of breaking into their house?
About a month before this happened.
Did you try to break into their house?
No, ma'am.
Did you ever try to break into anybody's house?
No, ma'am.
Oh.
Neither one of those statements are true, ma'am.
You mean that he didn't try to break into your house?
Yes, ma'am.
Don't interrupt.
Yes, ma'am.
It's really not important. All right, so he called you because he said that you tried to break into his house a month before.
Yes, ma'am.
And he wanted to get the matter straight at the parking lot of a video store.
Yes, ma'am.
And so what did you say?
I went to the store because it was the middle of the day in the middle of town, and I didn't expect nothing bad to happen there.
Well, what time of the day was it?
About 12:30 or 1.
Did you go alone?
No, I had...
No, you went with Josh.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else?
Yes, ma'am.
Who else?
Zach.
So you went with Zach, too, who also isn't here,
Yes, ma'am.
along with Larry, who isn't here. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, were Josh and Zach at your house when you got the call?
No, we was on the way to Zach's house.
Who was on the way to Zach's house?
Me, Josh, and Zach. They called...
When you got the call, were you there alone?
Oh, ma'am.
You were there with Josh.
And Zach was with me.
So all three of you were at your house when you got the call?
No, we was going down the road.
I want you to pay attention. You received the telephone call at your house. Who was at your house with you at the time you received the telephone call?
I wasn't at my house.
Where were you?
I got the phone call when I was going down the road. They called the cell phone.
Oh. Who has a cell phone?
Zach.
So he didn't call your number, he called Zach's number.
Yes, ma'am.
How'd you have Zach's number?
No, I've had repeated calls from him before, and it was on my caller ID, so I knew where I could reach Chad at.
Was he a friend of yours?
No,
But you knew that the boys were going to be together,
always.
the three of them,
I don't know. I didn't know Josh was going to be. I know Chad's always with him.
with Zach,
Somebody.
with somebody. All right. So Chad, Josh, and Zach. You reached him on the cell phone, said you're going to meet him at the video store. So you pile in your car, you're in your car already, and you take off to the video store.
Yes, ma'am.
And what was your intention, sir, when you called him?
To get at the bottom of him breaking into the house.
What do you think we pay police for?
They wasn't going to do nothing about it.
So what were you going to do about it?
See if he really did it.
And how did you intend to do that?
Get him to tell the truth.
And how did you intend to get him to tell the truth?
I asked him.
You were just going to ask him. You were going to say, did you try to break into my house? And you thought he was going to answer you. Is that what you thought?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you kidding me or what?
Telling the truth.
Telling the truth. All right. And how many of you went to the video store?
Me and Larry.
But you didn't go just with Larry.
No, my father and Rusty, they followed us because they heard the phone call.
Who heard the phone call?
When we called them, my dad picked up the phone and he heard what Zach and them said they were going to do to me, and that's why they followed me up there.
Well, what did they say they were going to do to you?
And I was grounded at the time. He said when I left my house that I was going to get shot, and that's why Dad followed me up there.
So let me understand this. You called him to arrange for a meeting to ask him a question. Why did you try to break into my house? In response to that, he told you that he was going to kill you.
Zach did.
Zach did. Well, I don't care who did. Zach did, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so you decided to go anyway.
Yes.
And not only did you decide to go anyway, but your father and Rusty decided to go in a second car.
Yes, ma'am.
Why, Mr. Wooten?
I wanted to make sure that the boy was not carrying a gun, that he was going to shoot my son.
And how did you intend to find out if he wasn't carrying a gun?
I asked him, which I did.
You were going to ask him,
Yes, ma'am.
do you have a gun and do you intend to shoot my son?
Well, no, I asked him if he was toting a gun.
You said, well, are you toting a gun?
Yes, ma'am.
And so after he confessed to the attempted burglary, he was going to confess to carrying a gun. Is that what you thought?
Well, he pulled up his shirt and showed us he wasn't carrying a gun. He showed us he wasn't toting a gun.
In his shirt?
Yes, ma'am.
Did any of you ever see Bruce Willis? Carries him in his shoe. And
He had on shorts. It was during the summer.
So now we've got two cars going from your team. The adult mature father and one son, and you with your friend Larry, and you with your two buddies.
Yes, ma'am.
And why don't you tell me what happened when you got to the parking lot at the video store?
When I got there, it was just Justin and Larry. They walked out of the video store.
Justin and Larry.
Walked out of the video store. Yes, ma'am. And then Randy and Rusty jumped out of the car and followed behind them, and they started in on Zach, asking him about a gun, telling him to raise his shirt up and all this. And he raised his shirt up, and then they asked him how old he was, because they knew he was too young, and he said how old he was, and they called him a liar, and then he told him he was 21, and Randy slapped him in the face. And after when he did that, they was all coming.
Just a second. Randy, did you slap him in the face?
No, ma'am, I hit him.
You hit him?
Yes, ma'am.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 17-year-old Chad Parker and his friend Josh Lawson say they agreed to a brawl with 17-year-old Justin Wooten and his brother Rusty. The boy's father, Randy Wooten, claims he accompanied his sons to make sure the fight was fair.
Okay. Why did you hit him, sir?
He had an attitude, you know, when he pulled his shirt up. No, he said, no, I'm not toting a piece. And I know the boy was older than what he was saying he was.
So you hit him?
I hit him.
In the face?
Yes, ma'am.
And then what happened?
After he did that, they started coming towards me. All of them was coming towards me. So I got a bat out of my car and ran to the store and told them they needed to call the police because something bad was going to happen, and they refused to call the police. And when I was in the store, Rusty kicked the mirror off my car and kicked the side of my car. Then he picked Josh up and was choking. I don't know what he was doing to him. He had him in the air and wouldn't let him down.
Who had you in the air?
Rusty Wooten.
Rusty. Glad you confessed. This is a wonderful lineup. Why did you have him in the air?
Well, the way everybody was positioned, my dad was in front of Josh and he was walking towards you, and I thought he was going to do something from behind. So I grabbed him from behind, and Justin told me that Josh didn't have nothing to do with the break-in. He was just with the wrong people. So I let him go, and I said, I'm sorry. I apologized, shook his hand, and that was that. I did punch his mirror, but it was because of my only excuse is anger. Is either punch the mirror or punch a minor and possibly go to jail for assault to a minor. So I chose the mirror. So, and I'm ready to pay that. I have an estimate on what a factory mirror would cost for his car.
All right. So far, is everything that I've heard pretty much accurate the way it happened?
No, ma'am.
Well, he said yes, and he says yes. You say no.
No.
What was different?
The phone call, Chad said to meet them at the video store.
Yeah.
Justin and Larry was inside. Rusty and I was parked at the front door. They walked up, started in the video store. Chad saw me sitting in the car. He turned and ran to his car. And that is when he got the ball bat and was swinging at me and running across the parking lot at the same time, and he was swinging.
Was that before or after you slapped his friend?
That was before.
That was before you slapped his friend?
Yes, ma'am.
So he's running around like a lunatic with a baseball
Yes,
bat,
ma'am.
and you go over to his friend, ask if he's got a gun. You didn't like his attitude, and you slapped, and you, excuse me, hit him.
Yes, ma'am.
After the mirror was broken, what happened?
After the mirror was broke, I went to leave. And when I went to leave, Randy was stood in front of the car, and finally they left and got in his car, and Justin and Larry stayed, went back in the video store, and when I was leaving, I hit Justin's car with a bat.
You hit Justin's car with a bat. Were you in your car when you did that?
Oh, ma'am, I got out.
Because you were angry?
Yes, ma'am. They already did it to mine and hit them, which I know I shouldn't have did it, but I did.
And then what happened?
We left, and Justin's, I don't guess he did, but Larry got in the car with somebody else and followed us. And he hit beside of my car with a tire tool and then threw it at the back, and it stabbed in the back of the car.
With a
tire tool, with a sharp end on the one side, and then it's got the lug wrench on the other side.
It's not one of my usual pieces of equipment that I carry in my purse. But I assume it made a hole in your car.
Yes, ma'am, in the back and in the right quarter panel.
Was that your mother's car?
Yes, ma'am.
By the way, where was your mother when all this was going on?
At home.
Did you tell your mom that you were going over to the video store?
No, ma'am, when I got the call, I wasn't at home. They had stayed the night with me the night before, and then we left that
Who stayed the
morning.
night with you?
Josh and Zach.
Oh, okay. Now, what I want to know is, at what point, Justin, did you ask Chad whether he had attempted to burglarize your house?
I told him on the phone.
No. You were meeting at the video store because you wanted to ask him why he attempted to break into your home. And you told me a few moments ago that that was the sole purpose of your going there. And that you also told me that you expected him to answer you. So I've just heard a whole bunch of things going on, but I haven't heard at what point you asked him, Chad, why did you attempt to burglarize my house?
Your Honor, there wasn't no doubt in my mind because my father called him.
So then what'd you go there for?
Truthfully?
Truthfully? Well, of course, don't you see how foolish I'm making you look?
No.
Well, I'm making you look foolish, sir, because I want you to tell me the truth.
To beat the crap out of Chad.
Right! Now we get there. Not just to ask him whether he attempted to burglarize your house. So you went there, not only you, but your father and your brother and your friend Larry all went there to beat him up.
No. Me and Larry went because we knew he had people with him. My dad
So
was just
you
there
went, and your dad went for what purpose?
to make sure there weren't no guns there.
So he said it's okay if you go and beat him up as long as there are no guns.
Verify? Yeah.
No, just a second.
Yes, ma'am.
It's okay if you go beat him up as long as there are no guns. Is that the idea? Yeah, let's just go have a fair fight. How much do you weigh?
Me, 300 pounds.
How much do you weigh?
135.
that fair? Is that fair?
I mean, you know, if he's going to
No, is that fair?
I can't, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, if you weigh 300 pounds, and he weighs 135 pounds and his friend looks like he weighs 135 pounds after a good shower, does that sound fair to you?
He shouldn't
like
put
a fair
himself in
fight?
them situations.
What?
He shouldn't put himself in the situations with me.
That's what police are for. Quite frankly, Mr. Wooten.
Yes, ma'am.
These two people are idiots. Those two people are idiots. You give them the benefit of the doubt because they're young idiots.
Yes, ma'am.
You're not a young idiot.
No, ma'am.
My question is, are you an old idiot? How would you permit your sons to become involved in a situation where you know there is going to be violence? Not only do you know, you anticipate there's going to be violence, but your son's intention is to be violent. How do you permit your sons to do that? And follow them. Follow them to make sure that it's just a fair fight. How do you do that?
How do I do it?
Yeah.
This between Justin and Chad has been going on for years.
So?
It's always never Chad on Justin. You know, he'll never, you know, I don't have no problem with them fighting fair. But it's always Chad and 2 or 3. You're going to jump on one boy. And
how many children do you have?
I have 3.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a carpenter, contractor.
I've always thought that it was the responsibility of parents to try to discourage the resolution of disputes by acts of violence. And I don't care what kind of violence it is. You say it's a fair fight. People get killed in a fair fight.
Yes, ma'am.
So let's say he didn't have a gun. Let's say he had a knife or a screwdriver or a lug wrench. And instead of throwing the lug wrench and hitting the car, one of your team threw it, and it went through the windshield, and it hit somebody in the head, and they got killed. Well, we didn't mean for that to happen. All we meant was to go there and have a fair fight. Now, that doesn't excuse you two idiots.
No, ma'am.
How many times have you been arrested, sir?
Twice.
For what? Let's make sure we get it right.
Theft property.
What kind of property?
An amp.
An amp.
Yes, ma'am.
And what was the second time?
Fair to appear.
On that case?
Yes, ma'am.
Uh-huh. You on probation?
No, ma'am.
Were you tried?
Yes, ma'am. They just gave me I had to do my suspended sentence, and then they ended the sentence.
When was that?
About a month and a half or 2 ago.
And when did this take place?
About a month ago.
So you were still involved with your suspended sentence?
No, I did my suspended sentence.
So this was a couple of weeks later?
Yes, ma'am.
The dates on these are wrong. We got the actual police report from where he busted his taillight out at the video store.
Well, I want to know, is it about the same time as he was getting off a suspended sentence, he was involved with something else?
I don't know when his suspended sentence was,
I don't
but
know
I can
either.
tell you
I just want to know how dumb he is. All right. And what about you, sir? Let's get to you. Arrested? You. Ever been arrested?
No.
You? You?
No, ma'am.
Didn't think so. Figured he was. So you want them to pay for the damage to your mother's car?
Yes, ma'am.
Forget it! Forget it. He had no right to go there. Looking for trouble. It found him. They're not going to get paid for their car, for the baseball bat, for the dings on the car. Good. You have to keep better control of him. Now you can stand up. You got to keep better control of him. Only saving grace is that you weren't there in the car with him. You weren't there with him. This father, who doesn't see anything wrong with what his boys did, I think it was the ultimate act of betrayal as a parent to encourage his 2 children to engage in a brawl that could have ended up with somebody seriously hurt. And if you don't get it, Mr. Wooten, I'm really sorry for you. We live in a civilized society. We're supposed to anyway. Lots of bad things going on around us. You're not supposed to set a bad example for your children. You're supposed to set a perfect example for your children. And a perfect example isn't, I'll come with you to make sure there are no guns and you can just beat the crap out of them, which is exactly what he says he intended to do. And if you didn't want to be involved with it, you shouldn't have gone.
Yes, ma'am.
Right, good. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I do think that Judge Judy saw through that the defendants are short-tempered, irresponsible adults.
I don't agree with the judge on that one.
I would have liked to have got paid for the damage because I do feel that they are responsible.
I filed a police report, which I never got to show the report.
I shouldn't have been there.
I feel that if anybody makes a threat to my family, I'm going to back them up.
You know, I didn't figure they was going to do that, especially like 2 grown men.
Whether it's trying to see if somebody's carrying a gun or if it's going to be a fair fight.
But I see what kind of people they are, and I know I'm not going to be around them.
I caught Chad red-handed attempting to burglary my house.
They've been blaming me for years for doing things I ain't did.
It worked out for the better, and maybe everybody learned a lesson out of it.
They get mad because Justin's friends leave him to hang out with me.
It's glad it's over with.
Do not encourage or incite your children to violence.
It's bad that it did happen.
Call the police.
Police should be called, which I called the police the morning of the attempted burglary.
It's over.
I guess I may be not a good example for my children.
Don't take matters into your own hands.
But, you know, I'm going to make sure that nobody does attempt to kill one of my kids or even...
Kimberly Gutierrez is suing her mother, Rhonda George, for false allegations, debit card charges, and personal belongings.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Case 2131, Gutierrez versus George.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Miss Gutierrez, this is your mother.
Yes, ma'am.
And who is this?
My grandmother.
And that's your daughter?
Yes.
I'm reading the complaint and the answer, and this is what your complaint is about. You claim that your mother had you falsely arrested, as a result of which you spent 4 months in jail. While you were in jail, it is your claim that your mother used a debit card of yours, I think $3,000 worth, and you had some belongings at her house that you want. I gather that you've had some problems in your own life. You have at least 3 children.
Yes.
Was the state ever involved in placing the children in foster care?
No.
And what about your daughter?
My daughter, yes.
And how old is your daughter?
She's 19 months.
At what point did the state become involved with your daughter?
In May of this year, May 18th of this year, when there was false allegations made against, when my mom refused to give me my daughter back.
In May, when you brought your daughter to your mother's house, when?
I called my brother on May 17th of 2022, and I asked him to babysit my daughter.
Your brother. And does your brother live with your mother?
Yes, he was staying with her at that time.
So on the 17th, you asked your brother, who was staying with your mother, if he would babysit for your daughter. Where were you going?
I was needing to go to Fresno, and I had just received my income tax check. So I needed to go to Fresno, and I was on foot because my car was impounded the day prior.
Were you going alone?
To Fresno, yes.
So you brought your daughter on the 17th of May to your mother's house, and your brother was supposed to watch him, according to you, while you went to Fresno.
Yeah, he met me down the street, actually, because there's a restraining order, so I didn't actually go to the resident.
Who has a restraining order?
My mother has a restraining order on me.
Is the restraining order that she has against you a final order or a temporary order?
It's good for 3 years, that's all I know.
That's a final order. Was that a final order of protection after a trial, or did you consent to it?
I was not notified of the court date. Didn't consent to anything.
Okay, so it was a default.
I don't know what that means.
It means you didn't show up and they entered a final order of protection in favor of your mother. So you're not permitted to go to her home.
Right.
Since that's not really the subject of this, I don't have to get into it. In any event, you went on the 17th, you dropped your child off at your mother's house, your brother was there, and then what happened?
I finally got to Fresno, I got a ride, I got to the check cashing place. It literally took me...
Don't tell me, I'm not interested in that. 17th, you dropped the child off. You were supposed to pick the child up when?
That evening.
On the 17th?
Yes.
And did you?
I showed up it was a little before 10. I showed up, I called my brother, I said, I'm down the street. He was like, yeah, I'll be right there.
10 o'clock at night?
It was almost, ma'am, I was on foot. And
it's just, I asked you 10 o'clock at night.
It was right before 10, yes.
Okay.
When I got there, I called him. It had been about 15 minutes had gone by, and I called him back, and I said, where are you at? And he said, Mom won't let me leave with the baby. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, Mom won't let me leave with the baby. My mother instinct kicked in, and I went in like fight or flight, and I walked down to my mom's house, and I knocked on the door and was asking for my daughter. I finally came to my...
Okay, so when your brother said that to you, instead of going to the police, you violated the order of protection.
I ended up leaving and calling the sheriff.
Okay, but you didn't. You went...
Of
So
course,
you
yes.
went
I
to
was going
the-
for my daughter. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what happened at 10 o'clock at night or 10:30?
Yes. I finally realized that about 5 minutes of being at the house, I was like, okay, you need to leave. So I left because she wouldn't open the door to give me my daughter. I left. I called the sheriff. And so I told them the situation. So they had walked down to my mother's and let her know that what she was doing was basically...
No, not what she was doing. The police came
and told her
with
that they
you.
could arrest her. And told her that if she did not, that she needed to get my daughter back. But because it was late, the baby was already asleep. And so the cops that came back down to me and they said, look, we don't, because they knew me.
Whatever. I'm allowing you to give me a certain amount of hearsay so that I can make this story make sense.
Oh, okay.
Do you understand? But don't tell me because they knew you, what they thought.
Yes, ma'am.
You were told to come back in the morning.
Yeah, the agreement was that between my mom and the sheriff was that I could pick up Malia in the morning. The sheriff told me to call before 6 o'clock in the morning before he got off his shift and that he would come back out and do another standby. The next morning came. Between me and my grandma, I had us call my mom. And
No, just a second. What does that mean between you and your grandma? Your agreement was you were supposed to call the sheriff. The sheriff, according to you, before 6.
I called my grandma.
No, not the grandma. The agreement was you weren't supposed to call your grandma. You were supposed to call
Right,
the
but
sheriff.
I needed a ride. I needed a ride. So I called my grandma to have her come pick me up.
Just a second. Where were you?
I was staying at a friend's house. I didn't live in Selma.
Just a second. You were staying at what friend's house?
The sheriff came, got behind us, and tried to pin us in, and my grandma went to take off.
So your grandmother was driving.
Yes, ma'am.
And she was trying to evade the police to go someplace else.
Kimberly Gutierrez claims her mother, Rhonda George, owes for debit card charges and personal belongings.
You were staying at what friend's house?
My friend Isaiah's.
Isaiah.
Yes, I stayed the night there waiting for my daughter.
Just a second. Isaiah. Isaiah what?
Bonilla.
And what is your relationship with
He's my
him?
best friend. He's been my best friend since high school.
Where are you living now?
I live with my grandmother right now since I was released.
Full time?
Right now, yes.
What do you mean right now, yes?
I'm in the process of getting my own place.
Okay, so you called your grandmother and then?
Called the sheriff.
And then?
Waited for the sheriff to respond.
And then?
The sheriff did not respond for a few hours.
Okay, so you were waiting for the sheriff to respond. The sheriff did not respond until when?
It was after 7 o'clock in the morning, and it wasn't even yes, ma'am, 7 a.m.
7 a.m. Your daughter is, according to you, 19 months old? 19 months old. And she had prior to that been living with you?
She was living with me all the time, yes.
She was living with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now let's get back to this arrest that you had. According to your papers, your daughter was with you up until that time. What time did she wake up in the morning?
Usually she wakes up between 7:30 and 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, well, then could you tell me why, if she wakes up between 7:30 and 8, why you would even contemplate picking her up before 8 o'clock in the morning?
Because one of my issues was with certain officers that would have been responding, and the officer that responded the night of the incident, he told me if you wanted me to be the officer to respond, you need to call me before I get off my shift.
Fine, but he didn't respond to you. But according to you, he didn't respond to you.
No, it was
so
a different
that
officer.
my question to you is,
They did respond at 7 o'clock in the morning.
And did what?
It was a horrible mess.
Well, he did what?
They responded. When they responded, he showed up. The officer told me that he did not want to be there. He said, if I have my way, you'll never see your daughter again. And I looked at him, and I said, wow. Okay.
What do you mean you looked at him? Where were you when you looked at him?
I was right next to him, but I just...
Where, at the precinct or at your house?
No, down the street from my mom's.
Okay, so he responded to you when you were down the street at your mother's house, and he said, I'm not getting involved in this, and if I had my way, you would never have your daughter. And so what did you do?
So at that point, my grandma pulled up, and I told him, I said, your assistance is no longer needed, and that my grandma could just get my daughter. And he says, well, you already called me. The deputy did. So I said, okay, whatever. He asked me if I had somewhere to live, and I said yes, and whatever. And so he went down to my mom's. When he went down to my mom's, he was supposed to just go down there and get my daughter. When he was taking too long, I could walk so far this way, and I could see straight down my mom's street. So I did. When I did, I seen that my mom was out there just giving him an earful. I know this woman very well, okay? So I just imagined what was being said about me. Well, I guess the back door is screwed and nailed shut at the house. I don't know why.
I don't know. It's not important.
Yeah. So anyways, my best friend went over the back fence.
What do you mean your best friend?
Isaiah Bonilla.
Oh, so you brought Isaiah with you?
He went...
Just a second. So you have your grandmother, and then you've got Isaiah, your best friend, also to go to your mother's house.
Yes, ma'am. He got my daughter.
Isaiah brought her to where you were.
Yes.
And then what happened?
I started walking back towards Isaiah's house. When I started walking back towards Isaiah's house, my grandma pulled up in her car and she was like, "Are you ready to go get your car out of the impound lot?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm ready." And so I got in her back seat with my daughter. When I got in the back seat, I got in the middle. Well, then she was like, "Well, I don't know what's gonna happen. Your mom's over there saying a whole bunch of stuff to the deputies, so I don't know what's gonna happen." And so I was like, "Well, I gotta go get my stuff from Isaiah's." So I go to jump back out the car. As I go to jump back out the car.
Wait, just a second. Now you have your daughter.
Because I needed my wallet. My bag was at Isaiah's. My purse and everything was at Isaiah's. I was gonna go back and pick it up. Well, right when we were gonna go back, the sheriff came, got behind us, and tried to like pin us in, and my grandma went to take off.
So your grandmother was driving.
Yes, ma'am.
And she was trying to evade the police to go someplace else.
Yes, ma'am.
And how many police cars were involved?
One.
Were there ever any more than one police car?
Once we got to the police department, of course, there's a police department.
No, I'm talking about the number of police cars. So there's a police car now.
Like coming behind us? No, it was just one.
It was just one?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were accelerating
to
get there? Was the police car siren on?
No.
Well, how did you know that he was trying to pull you over?
Because he tried to hit her car.
Oh, that would give you a clue. So you're telling me he tried to hit your grandmother's car without notifying you in any way to pull over?
Yes, ma'am. That's why I spent 4 months in jail and I beat my case. I went to trial and beat my case. Everything was dismissed.
I'm not responsible for the criminal justice system. I'm only responsible for what goes on here.
Yes, ma'am.
So I assume once you got to the police station, both you and your grandmother were arrested?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was in May?
Yes, ma'am.
And now uncross your arms. And now we're in December.
Yes, ma'am.
Of the same year.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're out of jail.
Yes, ma'am.
You've been out of jail for about?
Since August 25th.
Who does your daughter live with?
Right now, she's with the mentor. She's my ex-husband's aunt, ma'am.
And who placed her with your ex-husband's aunt?
I did.
Not the court?
No, I requested her.
Does the child's great aunt have guardianship?
No,
custody?
I'm getting my daughter back, ma'am.
But for the last 3 months, she's been with this aunt.
Right, because Child Protective Services did get involved, and Child Protective Services, I've been doing everything that...
Well, that's what I asked you. I asked you whether Child Protective Services
Child Protective Services did get involved with my daughter, yes.
Did? That's what I assumed.
And I've been drug testing, I've been
doing...
Just
a second.
Yes,
That's what I assumed, that Child Protective Services was involved. And so if Child Protective Services are involved, then they are overseeing the child's placement with the aunt. You have an ongoing case.
Yes, ma'am.
Probate court.
No, not probate.
Which one? Family court?
Family court, yes.
When was the case opened with regard to your daughter in the family
May
court?
May 18th, the day I got arrested, ma'am.
And that child became involved with the foster care system in May. Okay, so your grandmother also spent a little time in jail. How much?
2 weeks.
I quite frankly don't understand your case.
While I was in jail, Your Honor, while I was incarcerated, my mom had all my debit cards, my ID. She had went and actually, because of me getting arrested, she had went to Isaiah's and picked up all of my stuff.
You mean, just a second. Let me understand this. It is your claim that the reason that you had to go to Isaiah's house was to get your pocketbook, your wallet, your credit card that you left there.
But I never made it there.
I understand that. And Isaiah, clearly, from what you tell me, knew of the problem because he was part of this little conspiracy to get your daughter out of the house and was at the back of the house to pick up your daughter who was being put over the fence. So why would Isaiah give your mother?
Because she went over there with a baseball bat and busted out his windows. On February 4th this year, I lost my twins, okay? And that was the first time I had contacted my mother because I was going through it and I messaged her and I told her, I said, I really need my mom right now. If anything, I need my mom right now.
Kimberly Gutierrez is accusing her mother, Rhonda George, of wrongfully using her debit card and keeping her belongings.
So why would Isaiah give your mother?
Because she went over there with a baseball bat and busted out his windows. And the reason why all of my things were at my mother's was because I hadn't lived at my mom's for over a year.
What your case is about
is my belongings.
You claim that your mother went over and got your wallet from Isaiah's because I asked you what you were doing here. I certainly am not looking into the allegations of false arrest. It sounds as if you did the absolute wrong thing in trying to regain your daughter, whose custody, actually, you lost at a dispositional hearing and was determined to be a dependent child and placed in foster care. That's what happened here.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not even addressing your claims of false arrest.
Okay,
what you
so
did
then-
was actually the wrong thing. I said, so what are you suing for? Now,
My
you said
my belongings, my
what,
money.
Just a second. What money?
She used my CalFresh, which is my EBT food stamps, and my CalWorks, which is my cash aid through the welfare department.
Just a second. So you're suing her for taking your food stamps and your welfare check.
Right.
Just a second. Your food stamps and your welfare check.
And this is the statement from my tax return of all the money that was on there.
On where?
On my debit card. It had over $3,000 on it, and I marked what was used after she had picked it up. And then these are receipts from some of my belongings that was at her house.
Just a second. You haven't lived in your mother's house
I moved back to my mother's in the
Just
beginning.
a second.
Yes, ma'am.
You hadn't lived in your mother's house, according to what you said to me. Whitney, was it a year ago? Didn't you say that you moved out of
My
your
mom
mother?
allowed me to come back.
Because there was an order of protection.
She had called me. I was living in Fresno, ma'am.
Just a second. You hadn't lived in your mother's house. You said you were living with your grandmother. For how long were you living with your grandmother before May?
I said I was living with my grandmother right now. I was living in Fresno, ma'am.
I want to know what property you think...
My clothing, my husband's clothing, my daughter's bassinet. I had jewelry there. I had all of my clothing.
Why would all of your clothing be there? You were living with your grandmother.
I hadn't moved into my grandmother's until I got out of jail. I was living in Fresno, and my mom...
Just a second.
You're not letting me talk.
I'm not understanding your movements.
Okay, my mom kicked me out in 2021, okay? My daughter was just a few weeks old. My mom kicked me out due to her boyfriend.
She kicked you out?
Yes.
And?
When she kicked me out, I went through Marjorie Mason, and Marjorie Mason had placed me in hotels. I was placed in hotels for about 3 or 4 months, okay? And then it was about January of 21. I was at this time, I was pregnant with twins. They had genetic defects. On February 4th this year, I lost my twins, okay? And that was the first time I had contacted my mother because I was going through it, and I messaged her and I told her, I said, I really need my mom right now. If anything, I need my mom right now. My daughter, she had not seen my daughter. She was not a part of my daughter's life. I did not speak to my mother, nothing. So she made an agreement that she would watch my daughter, because I had to go to San Francisco because I was too far along in my pregnancy, and it was just a big old mess.
Do you have any of your daughter's property?
No.
Okay, now, let's talk about this card. Did you pick up her property from Isaiah? That's either a yes or a no. After the 18th of May.
Well, how do I answer that when I did pick up her property, but her cards were not in there? Her driver's license wasn't in there. Her food stamp card wasn't in there.
What were you doing at Isaiah's?
So she asked...
Was this when she was in jail?
Yes, right after she got arrested. So I went down there. No problem. He handed it right to me. Look in my wallet, make sure everything's in there. Like I said, I don't know if it was her driver's license or ID was missing, her food stamp card, and the other card, the bank card. I don't know how to get proof, but her best friend, he cashed out everybody money. There was a bunch of people,
I have
even himself.
Information right here.
Even himself and his girlfriend. I don't want to get into the whole...
I don't want to get into it either. It's far too complicated for me. Is what you're telling me that you never used a card that she had?
No, I did not.
Because I'm not concerned about food stamps or welfare.
I did not.
You're suing the wrong person. You were in jail, so you didn't need money from welfare. What proof do you have?
I have my bank statement.
What proof do you have that your mother withdrew money?
She was the one that went and picked up my cards.
Oh, I don't know that. That's not what she says, and you have no proof. Isaiah's not here, correct?
No.
I don't doubt you when you say that somebody used your card. I just need proof
My
to
mother,
show.
I know that she was supposed to get my daughter from CPS. She was supposed to go get a crib with my card, and I have the where she and my grandma can.
I just want you to show me.
Ma'am.
No, that your mother. I believe that people used your card.
She used my card.
No, I don't know that. I need you to show me proof that your mother
How am I
used
supposed to show? I have my bank statements.
Then I'll take a look at your bank statement. If your bank statement tells me who used your card, then that's an easy. She said she did not. I just want you to show me proof that any of these were used. I mean, we have a lot of PlayStations, DoorDash, Amazon Marketplace.
And
all
I was
of those.
locked up throughout that whole time.
I understand that. I suggest that you concentrate on getting yourself together. If you want to reunite your family, I suggest that you put your priorities in order.
Oh, they are in order.
Evidently not.
I work, I have a job, I go to school, I'm getting my own place, but I'm going to court, I'm getting my kids back.
Good.
Can I give you this?
I don't know what it is.
Well, I just want you to look at it.
What can I see? You're telling me this is part of your daughter's criminal history? What is this?
No, I'm just showing you she just got out of jail just a couple of days ago.
They haven't picked up charges, Your Honor.
You were arrested on November 28th?
Yes.
I'm not going to let you tell me about this. You have a lawyer?
Yes.
As I said, Ms. Gutierrez, if you're trying to work to get your family back together,
Yes, ma'am.
and your kids back together,
Yes, ma'am.
it would be a good idea to think about having more children until you get these children back under your roof. We're done here. Your case is dismissed.
You have a good day.
This court is adjourned.
Oh, I love her decision. I don't want to have nothing to do with any of them. They've burned their bridges.
Perfect example of suffer the little children. So you have 3 kids, none of whom live with you. They go back and forth between a grandmother who would participate in evading the police, but where the police had to stop them by ramming the car.
Yeah, I was going to say there was something in the papers about a crash and.
She said he tried to ram my mother's car. So fingers crossed for her.
Yeah, and the kids.
But take care of these kids before you think about having any more.
Yeah.
John Wheat is suing vet assistants Heather Schilling and Hannah Hensley for damages from an assault.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Case 2122, Wheat, Schilling, Hensley.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Wheat, it is your claim that the defendants assaulted you.
Yes, Your Honor.
And this is what I gather from reading your complaint. On August 10th of this year, your cat was injured. How was your cat injured?
That I don't know. The morning of the August 10th, I had let him outside. When he came back in, he was acting peculiar. I picked him up and noticed that he had 2 long, deep gashes on between his chest and his stomach.
At what time was this?
Approximately 10:45, 10:30.
And the defendants work at the vet where you have taken the cat before.
Not this particular cat. I have 3 cats total, and I had good service from them, so naturally I went back.
They work at a vet where you had taken an animal, maybe not this one, before.
Correct.
So at that time, you put the cat in the car and drove over to where the vet's office is.
Yes.
And during that time, they had a COVID protocol in the vet's office. And the protocol, I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know I've taken my pets to the vet during COVID. You get to the parking lot, you call, they come out, they check in the animal and what's wrong. And then they come out when someone is ready to see the animal. They bring them inside. You do not come into the office. Is that your protocol?
Correct.
Is that your COVID protocol? Well, it was in a couple of vets where I took our dogs. Were you aware of that protocol?
No, Your Honor, not at all.
So tell me, what happened when you got to the vet's office? Is there a parking lot?
There is. There was one other vehicle there. It was pulled up in the front of the door, the very first
The
spot.
papers indicate that there is a chart or a video of the parking lot. Is that correct?
We drew a diagram that they based that on.
Okay. So that would be a fair representation, sir, of the vet clinic, and there are parking spaces in front of it?
I believe so, yes.
Where did you park? Yes, please.
My car, I'm assuming at this point, the main door is approximately over here.
Okay.
There was the vehicle that I was mentioning is parked here, and I was parked here.
Okay, but you were parked right in front.
Yes.
Okay, is that right?
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, so what happened when you got there?
Well, I walked around the back of the car, got the cat out. He was in the passenger seat in the cat carrier. And I went immediately up to the door, and I don't know the defendants' names, but the younger of the 2 she was already out front with a...
You mean the young lady in the blue sweater?
Yes.
Is that who you're talking about?
Yes,
You're
Your
looking
Honor.
over there. What is your last name?
Hensley.
Miss Hensley.
She was already outside with a customer at
Your
that
Honor,
point.
that was, it wasn't me.
Don't speak. Okay. So you say Miss Hensley was already outside with another patient.
I thought it was Miss Hensley. It could have been another lady that worked there, but it was similar in youth and...
Okay. So somebody came out and was talking to another
They were
patient.
already there, and so they stopped me. I was proceeding up to the door, and I, like I say, I have pictures of the signage that they have. So you can't read the signage until you get right up on top of it.
Okay, so you went to the door, and what happened?
I went to go in, and I was stopped.
By whom?
The lady that was outside.
Okay, and the person who was outside stopped you?
And said that you couldn't go in, so I stopped. I told him that it was an emergency, that my cat was injured.
You told the lady outside?
That was outside, absolutely. Told him that he was injured and that he needed to see somebody immediately, the vet. And they suggested that I needed to call, and I couldn't understand it because I was already there. I said, "Can you just go inside and let him know that I was here?" That seemed reasonable to me.
What they told you was to get back into your car with the cat and call the...
No.
Or just call?
Just call. So I said,
So
well,
she was talking to the person who I assume was a female, because you say Miss Hensley or someone resembling her. They were taking care of another patient that was outside.
yeah, when they stopped me before I got...
And said, stop.
Correct.
Call, right?
Correct.
And you were upset, and you said, well, why can't you just go inside and tell them that I'm here?
Yeah,
Well, because she was with somebody else.
Well, it appeared to me that they were done.
Okay,
Obviously,
I don't care
communication,
what appeared to you.
yes.
She was outside with somebody else. She told you to call. What happened next?
Well, I set the cat down, and I actually sat on the concrete and waited. That person had...
Waited for what?
That person left. As soon as they got done talking with me, they went into the building. So, and I waited about 5 minutes. And then I guess it was Miss Hensley now. She came out and asked me now if I had an appointment, my cat's name. I said no. And I told her, I said no, it was an emergency. And then she told me at that time that there was no vet on duty. And so then that's when I got up. I was upset. I said that I needed to leave. I did use an explicitive.
What did you say?
Well, I said that I needed to get out of there so I could get some help.
Okay.
And then I picked up my cat and the carrier, and I was proceeding to leave.
And?
That's when the other plaintiff, or
Miss
the other
Schilling
defendant
came out?
and she confronted me, and she started into a huge rant about how she wasn't going to stand there and listen to this or whatever.
Were you shouting at Miss Hensley?
No.
No. She told you that there was no vet on duty.
Right.
And you got up and you said, I'm going to get the whip out of here.
Correct.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
the fact that I had waited 5 minutes, I was, it was upsetting. So then when she
Miss
came
Schilling
out,
came out and
she started into a huge rant.
what did she say? A rant is a conclusion. What did she say?
Well, she had her voice raised. She was shouting at me.
What did she say?
She said that she wasn't going to stand there and let me say things to this other woman. So then I just looked at her and I told her basically to shut up. So
Is that what you said to her?
I told her to shut up.
Okay, so you again used an expletive.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there was no reason for
She said,
Okay.
I'm just asking you what happened.
Yes,
So you told her to shut up.
I did.
And?
That's when she came over. She was probably about 3 foot away, and she stepped right over into me, and she put her body on mine. So she stepped right into me, pushed me back with her body, and she told me, I'm not afraid of you, I'm not intimidated by you. And I told her, don't touch me, get off of me. And I told her twice, and she never moved. I put my cat down, and I moved her off of me.
What do you mean?
I pushed her back off of me.
You put your hands on her.
She was already on me.
How was she on you, sir? What physical part of the defendant?
Her chest, her entire body was leaning on me at that point. She body checked me.
I'd like you to go over there and show me where Miss Schilling came out and where the three of you were standing.
Okay, I have pictures as well.
Okay.
So here being the front door.
Yeah, right.
And here was the box where I was sitting. When I picked up the cat, I moved over to here. When she came out the door, she was approximately here. And then she moved over to me and put her body on mine.
when Miss Hensley came out and told you there was no vet, why didn't you just get into your car?
I was leaving.
Well, when she came out, why didn't you just go into your car?
No, the first lady that I encountered never told me there was no vet.
No. I understand that. When Miss Hensley came out and told you there was no vet, why didn't you just get into your car?
I was leaving. I had picked up my cat and literally was walking away. I had walked from here to approximately here. In that meantime, she came out, and I had my back to her at first, and she started to yell.
No, he wasn't. He was yelling in my face.
Just a second. I'm going to let you have a turn as soon as he's finished. Go ahead.
She started to yell at me, and that's when I told her.
Okay, go back.
Thank you.
And then what happened? So now she put her body on you. You put both hands on her and pushed her back.
To push her off me.
And then what happened?
Then she struck me.
How did she strike you?
With her open hand.
Where did she strike you?
On my face.
Okay, when you pushed her, she slapped you.
She did.
And next?
And then the other one slapped me. She reached over her shoulder and slapped me.
Okay, on the face.
On the face.
And then?
And then we started to argue, and it was just yelling back and forth. And then the gentleman came out of the vehicle that was parked in that first spot, and he kind of diffused the engagement, and that's when she told me, just leave. I felt safe enough to turn at that point, and I went and put my cat back in the car, and that's when the lady in the blue ran behind my car, said, don't let him leave, ran behind my car and placed her body on my car.
And
then that's when I told her, I said, you can't detain me here. I'm going to take my cat to someplace where I can get him some medical. And I moved her away from my car.
How did you move her away?
With my hands.
So you...
Open hands.
Okay.
That's when she turned and struck me with her fist, broke my glasses, gave me a black eye. I was defending myself at that point. I had my hands up. I'm all cut up on this. And then that's when I finally grabbed her by her hair and pulled her off of me.
Which one did you grab by the hair?
The brunette.
What was he saying to you?
Sorry, it's a lot. Reliving it. He started screaming in my face, and I don't even remember. I'm so sorry. I don't remember exactly what he would say. It was really scary. That's all I know.
John Wheat claims vet assistants Heather Schilling and Hannah Hensley owe for damages after he was assaulted in the parking lot.
Okay, now prior to her going behind your car, you had no physical interaction with her.
Other than her hitting me.
She slapped you.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Okay, Miss Hensley, you came out at some point.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do for the vet?
I am a vet assistant.
And how long have you worked for the vet?
Like a year and a half.
So you've been working for the vet all during COVID?
Yes.
Is this the first incident that you had while you've been working at this vet?
Yes.
How long have you been working at the vet?
10 years now.
Have you ever had another incident like this, either during COVID or before?
Not like this, Your Honor. I've had to call the police before. We've had threats. We've had people shouting. Of course, animals bring out emotions, but never has anything ever been physical.
Did you know Mr. Wheat from prior visits with other cats?
I did not. I do know that we had seen one cat once before, and that actually was during COVID.
During COVID?
Yes.
So you checked, and it was the same COVID protocol?
Yes.
Leaving one?
We've had the same protocol since COVID started.
Okay. So the last time you took a cat there, you were familiar with the COVID protocol. Just think about what you're saying to me.
Okay.
The last time you took a cat there was during COVID, so you were familiar with the COVID protocol.
I believe I might have called before I went there.
And you waited in the parking lot. Somebody came out, took the cat inside.
I believe so.
And that's the protocol. And the reason that you didn't do that this time is because you felt as if it was an emergency.
Yeah, I was not aware of any protocol.
Yes, you were.
No.
Oh, yes, of course you were. Of course you were aware of a protocol, sir. The woman outside told you that there was a protocol. She said you have to call first. And she was speaking to somebody out in the parking lot. You know, you've had animals for a long time. When I go to the vet, there usually isn't somebody out in the parking lot. So you know that there's a protocol because you know that somebody else was out there talking to a patient and said to you, you have to call first.
After, yes.
And said to you, you have to call first. Okay. Now, you want to tell me what happened when you first interacted with him?
Yes. So he was sitting outside, and so I went out and told him that he would have to call to check in that we were curbside, and he said that he wasn't calling anybody. And I told him that I was very sorry, that was not how we ran things, that he had to call and check in over the phone, and then that we would come out and then bring in his cat. And he said that he wasn't doing that he wanted to see a doctor then. And I was like, we cannot do that. And so then I asked him, did he have an appointment with us? Like, what's the cat's name? I'm not even sure, what we're dealing with here. I need to get an idea of what we're dealing with. And I think he said the names. The cat was Pebbles. I don't even know. I'm not sure. But I asked if we had an appointment. He said no. And then I asked him what was wrong. And he said, the cat's bleeding out. She's dying. Something along the lines of that. Screamed at my face. And so I said, sir, I'm so sorry. You need to go to an emergency clinic. We don't have a vet today. And so then he started screaming in my face, got up, screaming in my face,
Was there a vet there that
No,
day?
we were doing tech appointments that day. So just like nail trims, things like that, things that we can do without doctor.
So there was no vet there?
Yeah, there was no vet.
So you told Kim you have to go to an emergency room?
Yes.
And when you said there was some shouting, what was he saying to you?
He was basically saying...
No, not basically.
It happened a long time ago, so honestly, I don't remember the exact words.
Okay, so you don't remember exactly what he said to you. He was angry. Okay, he sort of acknowledges that he was angry. Then what happened?
I'm sorry, it's a lot. We're living it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He started screaming in my face that we weren't helping and that he would be leaving, but he just was still screaming in my face. And I don't even remember, I'm so sorry. I don't remember exactly what he was saying.
Just take a minute.
It was really scary, that's all I know. And I told him that he needed to leave and he wasn't, and that's when Heather finally came out and told him that he needed to leave. She got in between us and was like, sir, you need to leave now. And she just kept saying, you need to leave now. And he kept screaming in our faces, and she was like, I'm not gonna have you screaming at my girls. That's what he's referring to when she got into his face. She said she did step into his face to push him away because he needed to leave. And she said, you're not gonna be screaming at my girls. He still was being belligerent, not leaving.
And at that point, that's when he spit in my face, and that's what caused me to shove him.
And then
when you said, so we'll stop for a second. You came outside because you heard an altercation outside.
Yes.
Tell me what happened when you came outside.
So I did come at them. I stood in between the two of them, and I told him he needed to leave. He needed to leave now. I told him I was not going to have him talking to my girls like that. That wasn't appropriate. He needed to leave. And he was still shouting, and then that's when he spit in my face. And then I did push him away to get back from me, and he stepped forward. I did smack him with an open hand, and then he pushed me. And what he's leaving out is he actually grabbed my scrub top, and he was pulling on my scrub top, and that's why Hannah had stepped back in. She tried to get his arm off, which probably is where the scratches came from, and he grabbed her scrub top at the same time. So there was more contact than...
Where was the cat?
The cat was actually behind me. He had left the cat there.
Sounds like a little bit more, Mr. Wheat, than what you told me in your narrative.
They're lying. First off, she said that when she just admitted to the fact that she told me that I needed to call. And that's what the first thing I said when I came and pulled up, is that the person that I met outside at the very beginning told me that I needed to call.
Yes.
And she just said that she told me I needed to call. There would have been no reason for the second person to come out and tell me that I needed to call. At that point, they came out and told me, asked me if I had an appointment, and I said no, that it was an emergency. And I had my cat the entire time with me until I put him down in order to push her off of me. That's the only time I put my cat down, and he was next to me the whole time. I would not have left my cat between her and me.
Mr. Wheat, these people have been in business for a very long time. Is it just possible, sir, that because of the circumstances, and you were there with a cat who was bleeding out, that you were high energy and maybe not totally composed? I mean, I have two people work here, at least one who's worked for the same vet for 10 years. You've used this vet before. You haven't had problem with this vet before, and she's been there 10 years. And I assume that, at least she tells me, she's never had an incident like this before. So I can actually imagine, I'm trying to put myself here, somebody comes out and says to you, we don't have a vet on duty, which you probably didn't believe at the moment.
No, I did.
Well, if you believed that there was no vet on duty, why didn't you just walk into your car? Why did you say anything to her? Why did you use an expletive? Why was there any need to have any communication at all with her? If there's no vet here, okay, I better get my animal to.
Well, Your Honor, when I first pulled in and I had that conversation with whoever that worked there, and I'll use that term loosely, whoever, they knew what I was there for.
Don't tell me what anybody else knew, sir. You were not told that there was no vet inside by the first person that you encountered.
No, that's wrong.
No, I was absolutely right, sir, in what I said to you. So say yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
John Wheat has accused vet assistants Heather Schilling and Hannah Hensley of injuring him after an assault in the parking lot.
Go ahead.
I explained that it was an emergency.
Just a second. The person that you were talking to, you just told me, was dealing with another client who had another animal out in the parking lot.
And I told them that it was an emergency.
Okay. Well, you know,
And
one
then
man's emergency is not. How's the cat?
Now?
Yes.
The cat's fine from that injury, but he's blind now.
Well, fine from that. Did you get the cat to a vet?
I did.
How far away?
20 minutes.
And what did they do to the cat?
Clean and sutured.
And you took him home?
I did.
And you took him the same day?
I did. Yes.
And when you went to the second vet, it was an emergency vet?
It was.
Okay. Did they have a curbside arrangement there? They did not?
No.
Had you called them if
No.
you drove? Well, you mean you drove 20 minutes not knowing if they could get to see a vet?
They're open.
How do you know?
I've been there many times.
Mr. Wheat, do you think that I think that you drove with your cat without calling first to see if they were open and a vet there when they had already told you that their vet wasn't there? Why would I get in the car? I would at least make a
The
call.
only other vet that's available right there.
Well, how do you know that that vet was available?
I've never been there where they've not.
You have any medical records for me to see of your injuries? I'd like to see
My
them.
injuries?
Yeah.
No.
Well, I'd like to see them.
I have pictures of my injuries.
I'd like to see that. Miss Schilling said that you spit in her face. Is that true?
That's not true. You're not. I don't have any lower teeth. When she was in my face yelling at me, and I was yelling back at her, that's when she made that accusation.
It was more than just a little bit of spittle, Your Honor.
It was what?
More than just a little bit of spittle, Your Honor.
He full on spit.
Okay. Do you have a police report?
I do.
I'd like to take a look at it. Okay, so the police report indicates that they were called. I assume they were called by you?
Yes.
Because they responded to their location. And the police officer observed red marks on her neck and her hair falling out of her head.
I do have pictures as well, Your Honor.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I pulled her off of me.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I got all those scratches in my black eye.
I'd like to see the defendant's photographs.
Okay.
Mr. Wheat, I've read the police report, I've looked at your pictures, and can I see pictures from the defendants? I do not have a cross complaint. Your answer, Ms. Schilling and Ms. Hensley, both indicate this was a terrible incident and you just wanted to go away.
Yes, Your Honor.
You too. You too.
I did call the police.
You too.
I called the police before they called the
You too. Mr. Wheat, you know, there are certain things that are common sense. And the common sense of it is you were upset, you were aggravated, you were angry, you were not getting what you needed. You were not told that there was no vet inside by the first person that you encountered. So
No,
wrong. Well,
I wasn't told until after the second person came.
I said, no, I was absolutely right, sir, in what I said to you. I said you were not told by the first person that you encountered that there was no vet inside. So say yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. It wasn't until Miss Hensley came outside that she told you that there was no vet inside. That is correct, ma'am.
That is correct.
Right. Now, in between that time, according to you, you sat outside for 5 minutes.
That's correct.
You sat outside for 5 minutes and you did not do what you were instructed to do by the person who was outside taking care of another animal. And they said, you have to call first. You said, you're right here. Why can't you tell them? That's what you just told me. Is that correct?
As soon as I finished with the conversation about them calling, they left me and went inside.
That's okay. You did not call. And you sat there on the cement, according to you, and waited. Then she came outside and told you there's no vet.
That's correct.
Okay. By that time, you were very angry because now you had a cat that was sick. Oh, yes, absolutely. It says so in the police report that's what you said. You said you were belligerent.
I was.
You were belligerent and you were angry, but the first physical contact that happened was the defendant to you. But you say you were belligerent and you were angry.
Yes.
And you honestly said that to me.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. You didn't act smart. If I had my animal that was bleeding to the vet and they said call, I would have called. And if I didn't call and if I waited outside and somebody came outside and said to me, the vet's not here, all I would have said is, why didn't somebody tell me that before? Because I waited out here for 5 minutes, even though I didn't do what I was told to do, which was to call first and check in. Do you understand? Your case is dismissed. We're done.
This court is adjourned.
Obviously, I have to stand by what she said.
I think that it was very fair. I think that she saw that he was an angry man who was upset about his cat.
They were the aggressor to me.
As soon as he was screaming and yelling, I think that that was the line.
I was holding up my hand trying to protect myself from her. She hit me, broke my glass, gave me a black eye.
The sooner that you leave, the sooner you can get your cat treatment.
I was upset at some point, I would have to say. That's true.
Pretty bad. I've been having issues like working with people coming up to the door.
Cat survived.
He is not welcome. The police did place a no trespass, and that was honestly our goal. We just didn't want him to come back.
You know, people get really upset when their pets are injured and they can't get immediate care. It's not quite as acute, probably, as when your child is sick and you take them to the emergency room and there are 500 people in the emergency room, but your child has a sore arm. You don't know if it's broken or not, you know, and you're agitated. He was clearly agitated, agitated and angry. Actually, I sympathized with him. You know, the first person could have said to him, we have no vet. If it's an emergency, go someplace else. Didn't. And then he sat and waited. And as he sat and waited, got angrier and angrier. And then we have no vet. You have to go someplace else. Bottom line, it was all a bad scene. But it was a bad scene precipitated by him.
Yeah, just listening to his story, I could tell the agitation level just as he's waiting and not getting info. You could tell. And like you said, sympathize with it.
Unfortunate. I think the defendants actually were interesting that they didn't file a counterclaim.
I also was surprised
because
by that.
They had, one of them, the young woman, had some serious injuries, pulled her hair out, she had marks on her neck. They just said it was a bad incident, just let it go. He should have too.
Case 2113, Pickett versus Glick. All parties, please step forward.
William Pickett is suing his former friend, Clinton Gick, for unpaid car payments and vehicle damage.
Mr. Pickett, you and the defendant, according to what I've read, were friends. You knew each other.
Yes.
You had a car that you were interested in selling. The defendant was interested in purchasing the car. Your car was 10 or 11-year-old vehicle,
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
When had you purchased it?
I purchased it about a year or so prior.
So you only had the car for a year. You were not an original owner.
Yeah.
Did you pay cash?
I did.
How much did you pay for the car?
Roughly $10,000, $10,000.
No, I want to know. I mean, you came to court today, not a roughly. Today we know the numbers. We're not talking about something that happened 20 years ago, something that happened a year ago. You bought a car a year ago. You paid cash for it, according to you. I want to know how much you paid for it. That's easy. You should have those records.
10,000.
Well, now you say 10, right?
Yep.
Now you say 10. So now I'm going to tell you to go outside and get me the bill of sale for the car.
I did not bring that.
Why?
I didn't think I needed it.
How am I supposed to ascertain what you paid for the car, sir?
I didn't think about that.
Should have thought about it. I thought about it right off the bat. You had the car for 1 year. And when did you sell it to the defendant?
3/18 of 22.
For how much?
$10,000.
Well, then you're a genius businessman, because unless this 10, 11-year-old car, Mr. Pickett, had something really unusual about it, most cars depreciate the moment you drive them out of a lot. You bought this car from a company, which means you paid more for it than if you purchased it through a private person. You understand that?
Yes.
Of course. So there was clearly a markup. Sarah, take a look at a 2012 Dodge Charger with 148,000 miles.
I got it. Between 7,500 and 10,000 for a private party sale.
Okay, so as I thought, the value of the car went down from when you bought it, but you sold it to him for $10,000 because he was making payments, I assume because he was making payments. Did you have a written contract?
I did.
I'd like to take a look at it. Mr. Glick, how did you know each other, sir?
We worked together. We'd known each other for about a year, I think, at the time the car was sold.
Okay, so the first thing was he traded in something of value, which was he gave you a car.
Correct.
What kind of car did he give you?
A Honda minivan.
Did you have the title to that?
Yes, I did.
Did he turn over the title to you?
He did.
What did you do with the Honda minivan?
I sold it.
To whom?
Someone off of Facebook Marketplace.
Okay, when did you sell it?
A few weeks afterwards.
How much did you sell it for? How much did you say you sold it for?
$1,000, $1,200.
Let's get specific, Mr. Pickett.
$1,000.
I'm not exactly sure what he sold it for, but clearly acknowledges at least $1,000. So this is what the lawsuit is about, and I've read your contract. According to the contract that you have here, you listed the dates, the schedule of payments, and you marked off when he paid and when he didn't. But we're going to go through the dates, and your lawsuit seeks damages to the car, repo fees, the unpaid contract price of the car because you repossessed it and you want him to continue until he's finished paying for it, right? That's what you want.
Yes, ma'am.
And the defendant has a counterclaim. And his counterclaim, in effect, although he doesn't articulate it in legalese, the basis of his countersuit is that there was never any meaningful breach of the contract and that he tried to make his payments pursuant to the contract and that you repossessed the car without just cause, and he's counterclaiming for the money that he put into the car as equity. That's what your counterclaim is.
That's
correct? Okay. So far you put in $4,000. According to this, he paid you March of 2022, April. As a matter of fact, he made 2 payments.
Correct. Payment schedule was for every 2 weeks.
Shh. 6/17, he made a partial payment, but made that up on 7/1, so he was up to date. Then you say on the 15th of July, he missed a payment. Did you miss a payment the 15th of July?
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
Tell me why.
At that point, the plaintiff had already threatened to repossess the car several times before I'd ever missed a payment on the car.
Because you made a partial payment once in June.
Yeah, and also...
But then made it up again within 2 weeks.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so you had already said to him, you missed payments, I'm going to repossess the car.
I informed, I didn't threaten to repossess it.
No.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you missed a payment on July 15th.
Yes, and I informed him when I missed the payment that the reason for missing it, he had just filed for bankruptcy, and with his bankruptcy and the threats to repossess the car, I had decided that I wanted to miss, as it states in the contract, that I could miss 2 consecutive payments before repossession. I wanted to talk to a lawyer and make sure that I wasn't going to be putting even more money into a car that
you weren't going to have equity in.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's why you missed July 15th.
Yes, that's
okay.
correct.
And it's the 29th of July, also missed.
Yes. So I attempted to give Mr. Pickett a $500 payment on the 29th. He refused to accept that payment, and I have that in text.
I'd like to see it.
Text messages.
I'd like to see it. Do you acknowledge that he attempted to give you a payment on the 29th?
Yeah, he attempted to make a partial payment.
He attempted to give you $500.
Correct.
And tell me why you didn't accept the $500. He missed the payment on the 15th.
I informed him on the 16th that I would not accept a late payment unless it's in conjunction with the current payment.
You can't change the contract, sir. You can't change a written contract. There was a loan on this car.
Yeah, there's a title loan on it.
Oh, you didn't tell me that. That adds a different wrinkle to this whole thing because you told me you paid cash for the car, so I assume there was not a problem.
William Pickett claims his former friend, Clinton Gick, owes for car payments and vehicle damage. Clinton is countersuing, claiming William sold the car under false pretenses.
No, you had a written contract with him. If you're changing the terms, he has to agree to the terms in writing in the same force and manner of the original contract, which is this in writing signed by both parties. You have a contract here. The contract says he can't miss 2 consecutive payments. He wasn't missing 2 consecutive payments. He missed July 15th, and he tried to give you one on the 29th of July. If you refuse to accept it, he hasn't missed 2 payments. You refuse to accept the second one. Got it?
Got it.
Okay, well, I see the interchange, Mr. Pickett, and the interchange clearly says you're paying your $1,000 today or returning my car. He says, I'll be giving you my $500 payment that's due today. Then you changed the contract and you said, not acceptable. You're behind $500 and a late payment will only be acceptable with a current payment. Is there anything about that in your contract?
There's not.
Okay, so if it's not in your contract, it doesn't exist, and you had so far no reason to repossess the car. Did he try to make a payment to you in August?
I think one other time between the time I repossessed it.
Okay, well, you had no reason to repossess it so far unless he missed 2 consecutive payments or unless he failed to keep insurance. Did he fail to keep insurance?
I have never been given proof of insurance.
This doesn't require that you are given proof of insurance
or not.
This doesn't say you require proof. Did you have insurance on the car?
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
Through whom?
Erie Insurance Agency.
Okay, and you have no information to the contrary?
I don't.
Okay, fine. So at the time you repossessed the car so far, Mr. Pickett, you didn't have basis under your contract to repossess the car.
There was also other terms that I believe he had violated.
Well, let's hear them. So far, he didn't miss 2 consecutive payments. Had you filed for bankruptcy?
I had started filing for bankruptcy, yeah.
Is that completed?
Still hasn't been discharged yet. I think I have another month or so.
Was this the first time you filed for bankruptcy? Buyer misses 2 or more consecutive payments. Buyer fails to maintain full coverage under insurance. Any significant damage to the vehicle that is not repaired in 30 days. Did you notify Mr. Glick of any damage to the car? Give him notice and say, pursuant to the contract, it has to be fixed in 30 days?
We had talked about it when he came to drop off one of his payments, and he said...
Well, give me a month.
It was...
A month and a year.
It was in June.
June of 2022, he came over to drop off a payment, and that would have either been on June 3rd or June 17th.
Correct.
Okay, and tell me about the conversation.
I said, hey, there's a dent in the front now. He said he'll get taken care of. At that point, I didn't really inspect the car because...
Well, I don't care what you didn't do.
Yeah.
I want to know what you did.
Yeah, I told him, it needs to be fixed. And he said he'll get taken care of.
Okay, and?
When I repossessed it, it was still there, as well as more damage.
Okay. Did he talk to you about the dent in the front?
I don't recall that conversation ever happening. There was text messages sent to me about damage to the car. The car had dents and dings all over it when I got the car. I mean, the front bumper even had significant damage to it.
You repossessed the car at the end of August. Where is the car now?
At my house.
What's it doing at your house?
I was just sitting there for the moment.
Well, what's your intention to do with the car?
Give it up in my bankruptcy or repair it and keep it and pay it off.
Who has the title?
The title loan company.
So there was a loan on this car?
Yeah, there's a title loan on it.
Oh, you didn't tell me that. That adds a different wrinkle to this whole thing because he told me you paid cash for the car, so I assume there was not a problem. When did you take out a title loan on the car?
I took out the title loan.
Month and year?
One of them was in December of 21.
Did you know that there was a title loan taken out on this car?
I knew that there was one. I didn't know that there were multiple. I don't know. But yeah, I did know there was a title loan.
Did you know in what amount?
No, I was never.
Well, that's pretty dumb of you.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, because if you're buying something free and clear that he owes nothing on, that's one thing. How much was the title loan?
Roughly $6,000 is what was owed on it still at that point when he bought it.
How much did you pay off?
A few thousand by that point. It's super high interest.
Okie dokie. Mr. Pickett, your claim against the defendant is dismissed. I'm now entertaining his counterclaim. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
You get stuck with this car. Now, problem is, you drove this car.
Yes.
Was it your primary source of driving the car?
Yes, it was.
Okay. For 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months, right?
Yes.
Okay, so, Mr. Glick, this was your primary vehicle. How much do you think it would cost you to rent a car per month? Per month. Give me a figure.
To rent a car per month, I would say $900 a month, probably something like that, $900,000 a month, maybe.
Okay, based upon what you told me, it's not so egregious because you had the use of the car for 10 months. I actually don't think that an 11-year-old car would cost that much to rent, $900 a month, considering that you also paid for your own insurance.
Correct.
And if you rented a car, that the insurance would, of necessity, come with a car. Sarah, could you look up for me best deals on leasing a Dodge Charger? I don't know what that is. Is that a truck?
It's a car.
Is there a site where you could look that up?
I'll see what I could find.
But the intention was that money was going to go towards, something that I would own.
Well, I understand that,
right.
but you had full use of his property for 10 months.
Sure.
You don't think it's fair for you not to pay for some of that use?
I would think the depreciation in the car for the mileage that I put on it would be more than fair. Absolutely.
Everything depends on how much you put down versus how much you pay monthly. So there's a wide range.
Give me the range. He didn't put anything.
$786 a month, $843 a month, but these are for brand new Dodge Chargers, not for 2012.
Oh.
So.
Okay. And according to you, the current low price on this car is $7,500 price.
For a private party.
For a private party, low price, $7,500.
Yes.
So you're going to resell this car, and the car is currently in working order, and the low price on that car is $7,500, right?
Yes.
And he's already paid you $5,000.
Yes.
In order to break even, if you sold that car, all you need is $2,500.
Correct.
So I think that it's more than fair to give you credit for the $2,500 from what you paid.
Okay.
You paid $5,000. Half of that seems to be a more than reasonable figure to have full use of his property, and he repossessed the car. I don't think he had any basis to repossess the car, which is why he dismissed his case. And you certainly don't want to get involved with bankruptcies and payments, so you don't want this car back, because getting this car back will be more trouble for you than anything else.
Exactly.
I absolutely understand that, because then you're dealing with his creditors and whatever. I'm not trusting that whole situation. In any event, I don't think that you paying $2,500 towards the rental of the car over a 10-month period is unreasonable, and then he's whole. Then if he wants to spend money to have the car spruced up before he sells it, well, maybe he can get $8,500 for it, and then he's whole. So now everybody's happy. Judgment on the counterclaim for $2,500. We're finished. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
This court is adjourned.
I'm very happy.
Need a car? I had a car.
I don't think it was an honest transaction on his part.
I'll keep buying and selling.
So yeah, I think he was just trying to get a quick payday.
So I just want to make sure I have this right. The defendant was paying the plaintiff $1,000 a month towards the vehicle that the plaintiff had a title loan out on, but instead of paying off the title loan so the defendant would have the car free and clear,
right,
he decided to keep the payments and not pay off the title loan.
Correct. Which means that even after he completed the payments, which he was halfway finished with, he could not have gotten clear title.
Yeah.
Because the title is with the loan company. And he's filed for bankruptcy, so you can't come against him.
किसी इलाके में कहत साली थी और जानवर सब कुछ खाकर फारिग हो गए थे। मजीद कुछ खाने को रहा ही न था। मवेशी मालकान बेहद परेशान थे। उस दौरान एक मस्जिद के मौलवी ने जुम्मे के खुतबे में नहायत यकीन के साथ ये बात बताई कि अल्लाह का नाम लेकर यानी बिस्मिल्लाह पढ़कर दरिया को हुक्म दिया जाए तो वो भी नाफरमानी नहीं करता। ये चरवाहे का शायद पहला जुम्मा था। ये बात उसके दिल में उतर गई, यकीन का दर्जा पा गई। उसने वापस आकर अपनी बकरियां खोली और सीधा दरिया पर चला गया। ऊंची आवाज से बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम पढ़ा और दरिया को कहा वो अपनी बकरियां चढ़ाने जा रहा है, अपने ऊपर से गुजरने दे। ये कहकर उसने अपनी बकरियों को हाका और दरिया पर चलता हुआ दरिया पार कर गया। इलाका घास से भरा पड़ा हुआ था। दरख्तों के पत्ते भी सलामत थे क्योंकि किसी को यहाँ तक आने की रसाई नहीं थी। अब तो ये उसका मामूल बन गया कि वो बकरियां पार छोड़कर वापस आ जाता और शाम को जाकर बकरियां वापस ले आता। उसकी बकरियों का वजन दुगना चुगना हो गया। लोग चौंक गए और उससे पूछा कि वो अपनी बकरियों को क्या खिलाता है। वो सीधा साधा और साफ दिल नौजवान था। उसने साफ साफ बात बता दी कि जनाब हम तो दरिया पार करके अपनी बकरियां चराने ले जाते हैं। बात सबने सुनी मगर किसी ने यकीन नहीं किया क्योंकि ये नाकाबिल यकीन बात थी। मगर बात होते होते मौलवी साहब के पास पहुंच गई। मौलवी साहब ने उस चरवाहे को बुलाया और सारा माजरा पूछा। उस चरवाहे ने मौलवी साहब को ही हवाला बना लिया कि मौलवी साहब मैं तो आपका शुक्रिया अदा करने वाला था कि आपने जुमे के खुतबे में जो नुस्खा बताया था कि बिस्मिल्लाह कहकर दरिया को भी हुक्म दो तो वो भी इनकार नहीं करता। मौलवी साहब हैरत से उसके चेहरे को देखते रहे। मौलवी साहब ने कहा भाई साहब ऐसी बातें तो हम हर जुम्मे में करते हैं, फकत इनका मकसद लोगों का ईमान बनाना होता है। मगर बकरियों वाला डटा रहा कि मैं तो बस बिस्मिल्लाह कहकर पानी पर चलता हूँ और बकरियों समेत पानी पार चला जाता हूँ। आखिरकार मौलवी साहब ने सुबह खुद ये तजर्बा करने की ठानी और चरवाहा भी आ गया। मजमा ज्यादा था। मौलवी साहब ने एक दो बार सोचा कि इनकार कर दूं, मगर वो जो मौलवी साहब को कंधे पर उठा कर लाए थे अब भी जोश खरोश से अल्लाह अकबर के नारे लगा रहे थे और मौलवी साहब के हक में तारीफें कर रहे थे। आखिरकार मौलवी साहब ने एक रस्सा मंगवाया। पहले उसे एक दरख्त के साथ बांधा, फिर अपनी कमर के साथ बांधा, फिर डरते डरते ढीला ढाला बिस्मिल्लाह पढ़ा और दरिया पर चलना शुरू हो गए। मगर पहला पांव ही रखा था कि धड़ाम से पानी में गिर गए। मौलवी साहब डुबकियां खाने लगे और पानी के बहाव में बहना शुरू हो गए। लोगों ने खींच खींच कर बाहर निकाला। मौलवी साहब की इस हरकत ने चरवाहे को परेशान कर दिया कि मौलवी साहब की बिस्मिल्लाह को ये क्या हो गया है, क्योंकि उसका ये रोज का मामूल था। उसके अपने यकीन में कोई फर्क ना आया। उसने बिस्मिल्लाह कहकर बकरियों को पानी की तरफ इशारा किया और खुद उनके पीछे चलता हुआ पार छोड़कर वापस भी आ गया। लोग उसे वली अल्लाह समझ रहे थे और उसके हक में नारे लगा रहे थे, मगर वो सबसे बेनियाज सीधा साधा इंसान था। वो मौलवी साहब के पास पहुंचा और कहा, मौलवी साहब, मैं आपकी बिस्मिल्लाह की तारीफ से काफी परेशान था, मगर पानी पर चलते हुए मुझे आपकी बिस्मिल्लाह की बीमारी का पता चल गया। उस चरवाहे ने दरख्त से बंधी रस्सी की तरफ इशारा किया और कहा, मौलवी साहब, ये है आपकी बिस्मिल्लाह की बीमारी। आपकी बिस्मिल्लाह की बरकत को ये रस्सा खा गया। आपको अल्लाह और बिस्मिल्लाह से ज्यादा उस रस्से पर भरोसा था, लिहाजा अल्लाह ने भी आपको रस्सी के हवाले कर दिया। मौलवी साहब, आप भी कमाल करते हो। मैंने आपके मुंह से सुना और यकीन कर लिया और मेरे अल्लाह ने मेरे यकीन की लाज रख ली। मगर आपने अल्लाह का कलाम सुना मगर यकीन नहीं किया, लिहाजा आपको अल्लाह ने रुस्वा कर दिया। मोहतरम अजीज दोस्तों, यही कुछ हमारा हाल है। हमारी नमाजों और दुआओं का हाल भी, हमारी हर एक इबादत यकीन से खाली है। मेरे मोहतरम अजीज दोस्तों, जरा सोचिएगा जरूर।